damn well. I'm gonna talk about it. Never mind.
Oh, okay.
So it should be going live just any second now. I'm gonna turn the phone off.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. Good morning, folks. Got a little bit of lag here. Let me catch up with where I'm supposed to be. For some reason, I can't seem to click the dang button over here. Trying to find something to weather related that I wanted to discuss. Oh crap! I hope I hadn't shut everything down. I think I did. I think I shut the wrong window. Good morning, Miss McNeil. Oh, there's a good picture. Oh, maybe not a good picture, but I'm working on. I had some storm pictures and things I wanted to share, and I think I'm close. So I'm still trying to find them real quick. Pick them back up. There was one in particular I was wanting. Okay, looks like I put a slide on. I'll just use that. Oh, gotta find your glass. Hey, good morning, Dave. I hope you guys are all right too. The hurricane. Turn that echo box off. Sorry, guys. Dave, it blew through here. We got a minimal amount of damage. We just had some couple small trees go down. Personally, there's a big one across the street, across the road highway, and then there's some other ones all around. We went into town yesterday for a few minutes to pick up some medicine at the pharmacy, and on the way in we found saw several places that were where they cut trees out of the road and that sort of thing. But the worst part of the damage is not in our valley; it's in the couple back and forth, but mostly below us. If you lived in Tennessee along the North Carolina Tennessee border, that's where you got it the worst. And one of the big highways, or not highways, but couple of rivers out of North Carolina. One in particular, the Old Chucky, runs not too far south of us, but It's running pretty crazy, and I just read this morning, and I'm going to show a picture in a minute, but they were having to evac some of that last night after midnight, and I didn't know that when we went to bed last night. Pigeon Forge has got some problems. Yeah, the Pigeon River has been really high coming out of North Carolina, and that's where the problems also lie for Cotton County and Newport, the city of Newport. They've had some, and they were worried about a dam failure on the North Carolina side. To my knowledge, that dam has not failed, and these are small dams for the most part. The Nolichucky Dam, I'm guessing, is the highest dam of the bunch right now that I hear about and being worried about. And I was a little concerned about it yesterday because I saw some video of the water coming over it, and it was pretty severe. These dams, most of these dams, even the small low dams, are built to either overflow, and that's the one in the Pigeon River, I believe, is that type of dam. And then the Nolichucky was a higher dam, and it has spillways and a spill gate, I believe. It was built in the either aughts or teens, and by a private electric company, then sold to another one, and then eventually acquired by or sold to TVA in 1945, I believe. TVA used it for years to generate electricity, but then it got so there's a word for it, but basically it was full of sediment and it's turned into a pretty amazing wetland, but it's not much good for storing water or putting electricity. So the dam's just kind of there for visual purposes, but it does hold water back. And I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me just go ahead and put that up. Good morning, Miss Diana. I don't guess the hurricane made it all the way up to Canada, did it? Yeah, we're good, Diane. We didn't get too much. I'm not sure any of our family. I don't think we've got any family that's been in any immediate danger. Now, my brother works for the hospital, or the hospital group that was evacuated yesterday. That was on the national news in Irwin or Unicoi County. I don't think, as far as I know, he wasn't there. I did try to call him last night, though, and couldn't reach him. He didn't call me back. That's not too unusual, but, I'd like to have heard back from him, made sure he was okay. He wouldn't have been stationed there for the day. He moves around to they own several hospitals in the area, and he moves around. He's a tech he's been there a long time, but he's like an electronics tech for them, and primarily does their communication systems and phones and whatnot now. Hey, Mike, you're driving where? To 17 Wing? That sounds interesting. I've lost track of Mark. Hey there, buddy.
Where you at?
I forgot. Did I forget to send you a link?
Yeah.
Well,
I've been calling you.
You been calling me?
Yeah. I just thought maybe you were out of power or something.
No, I don't want. Let me hang up the phone and send you a link real quick.
All right.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Oops. Hang on, folks. Let me fix that real quick. Oh, he said he'd been trying to call. He said he tried to call me last night or yesterday. But I didn't hear the phone ring, so I don't know. There's a problem with the phone between here and there. All right, he should be with us any minute now. Sorry about that. I'll tell you guys I'm sorry, then maybe I won't have to tell him. Let me go ahead and put some slides up because I want to, before I start talking about spooky things this morning, I'm definitely going to talk a bit about what's been going on up here and the weather and that sort of thing, because I'm struggling this morning. Not that you guys would be surprised by that, you know me, but I seem to be having a small bit of trouble getting my act together. There it is. Hey, buddy. Oops. Hey there. Oh, I didn't hear the phone ring, but I am sorry. I got busy and forgot to send you the link last night. I got too carried away. So what I was getting ready to do, and I told everybody else, I'm going to skip through this part real quick for a minute and go to weather of sorts. So let me see if I wanted to show a couple of pictures of it.
I just wanted to, again, thank you and your wife for sucking me down into the wormhole of Paleo Chris.
Well, we might as well get that out of the way up front.
I was watching that and I was like, oh, it's time for the show. And I went to go to the link and I'm like, well, there's no link. So I thought you were weathered out.
No, I'm not. We're good. I was going to show some things.
Our home country don't look good though, buddy.
No, it don't. And I don't know if you know this yet or not, but the Chucky Dam was in fear of failure last night.
I heard it might have even blown.
Well, I don't know yet. I'm getting ready to look that up too.
Well, what drainage does I-40 go along? Because a dam blew up there and tore out half the highway.
That is over that. I think that's the one that they were concerned about flooding Newport, the Pigeon River Dam, I believe.
Yeah, so it went.
Yeah.
And the highway went with it. So it was, I saw semi trucks parked along it. And the road was just gone. I mean, the whole side of the hill was just gone. Where that highway goes along the river there.
Yeah, it washed it out.
It washed, I think it was the westbound lanes. It just tore the whole chunk of highway out of
there. Let me see when this report came out. This came out this morning at 9 o'clock. And looks like there's still, the dams, the water's coming over the dam.
You still smell like a skunk.
They're not saying it. They're not saying it's actually broken yet, but it is coming over. And looks like they've evacuated everybody in Greene County, Cotton County, and Hamlin County that was along the route of the Chucky. And the Hamlin County part of that is where it hits Douglas Reservoir. And yesterday I was telling Mark, and I'd either Phil told me or I had looked up, they're expecting Douglas Reservoir, Douglas Lake, to go up as much as 16 feet in the next few days. So that's quite a lot.
That's crazy.
That's a quick. I've seen North come up pretty quick.
And Douglas Lake ain't a little lake.
No, Douglas ain't a little lake. Douglas is a big lake, and it's okay. Here's another one.
They say anything about Cherokee?
No, not much. I know it's come up a little bit. We're not getting as much rain or water into Cherokee, I don't think, because the Holston is coming out of Virginia, right. And Virginia, that area of Virginia didn't get as much as the North Carolina side. I think if I heard right this morning on the news, I was waking up, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think I heard that Asheville got as much as 25 inches of rain yesterday.
Holy buckets.
Or in the last couple of days. Excuse me, in the last couple of days.
Well, whatever.
Right. And all that's what's running downhill and coming in.
And this is Helene crashing into moisture that was already coming from the northwest.
Yeah, and they finally talked about that today. I kept watching that come. We'd already had a couple of days of pretty good rain. And I told Brenda the other morning, I said, this has got to be too early for Helene. It's coming, but this isn't Helene. This is another front. And then once the two collided and, started doing things together, then we had one big front of lots of rain, and then Helene come in and dump more rain. And the reason Asheville got it so bad is as you know, the North Carolina side got hit first because the hurricane spins counterclockwise. So it basically slammed into the mountains and going that direction and dumped all that rain over there. And then that rain, if you look at my map here on the screen, the three circles that are on the right side of the screen, kind of that bang, 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 those are the main big areas that were getting hammered yesterday. The circle on top is not, it needs to actually be just a little bit more east, but I didn't cut my picture quite right. But that area was getting Roan Mountain and Johnson County and what's that? Where is it? What county? Carter County. Those areas were getting it coming out of the mountains and out of North Carolina side too, but they were just getting it because they were in the right place, wrong time.
Right.
And but then further down, you get into Irwin, which is that second circle, and that's where that hospital was getting evacuated.
Unicoi County got pounded.
Yeah, they got pounded. And then if you go on downstream, everything that's run down from that first and second circle is ending up down here, the third circle where it says Cott County floods. And so you can just imagine how much rain that's getting. So you got the French Broad River coming out of Asheville, North Carolina. You got the Nolichucky River coming out of that same area, more or less, just a little further north. And then you got other rivers like the Doe River and the what else is south? There's the upper part of the Holston that's probably getting some into that area. I'm trying to think of what else runs into
Watauga.
Watauga River, Elk River, probably all those things. All that's dumping more water in from that level.
Well, I looked at that hospital at Unicoi County, which I consider. I only lived a couple miles from, and I consider that my home county because that's where I spent 90% of my time.
Yeah,
and Unicoi County, that the hospital is if you go up to Chucky and you hit the forks where you can go northeast to Unicoi, the town, and into Main Irwin, or you can go to the southeast and go up and follow the river. And that darn hospital was built right in that floodplain, right beside the river. And I'm like, well, hell, I mean, pardon my French, but what did they expect? There's a reason that's a floodplain.
Yeah, and
it's built like it is. It's done this before.
It has. And maybe it's been a while, but it's done it before.
Yeah, it's been a while, but god dang, that's a lot of water. My buddy Craig Ponder keeps, he and his little sister, been sending stuff to me, and
where's he at exactly?
Well, he lives in Limestone.
Oh, okay. So he's on that end.
But they're just getting, the river is just roaring.
Yeah, no,
more than I ever saw it. And it's a scary, deep, bad current river to begin with. It's not a big, slow river. It's a big, fast river. And all that it's going to shake some things up through that country, I think.
Yeah. And I don't know
how fish survive that, how they...
Oh, there'll be a lot of fish displaced. They will be displaced for a while anyway. I
mean, are they going to get swept 50 miles downstream, or are they going to, do they find some cool hidey hole that they can survive this thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd say a lot of them will get washed down. He's talking about the Nolechucky again, because that's the river that runs up by Limestone, which we talked about.
Well, that is the river.
I suspect that river is over. I wouldn't be surprised if that water's not in Davy Crockett's cabin right now where he was born.
I'll guarantee you, we just talked about that last week. I'll guarantee you it's up in that spot. It looks like it is. I mean, like I said,
it's not high off the river to begin with.
Yeah, Craig lives right there in Limestone. It looks like it's crawled out. It's way out of its banks, and it's roaring through there and muddy, and that river is crystal clear on a normal day, crystal clear, like scary clear. And I can't even imagine.
Well, I'm sure it's a muddy, god awful.
It's a mess.
Right now, yeah, well, you could see where it hit. I mean, up there where it hit, yeah, it's
and clear. So is the pigeon. The pigeon was a big, chocolate milk looking, big white caps on it and roaring down the mountain.
And I don't know if Carol's in here yet, but
and Appalachian people just, get used to being kicked in the belly.
Yeah. Carol was not in here, but I think a year or so ago, we met her up for lunch and up around Gatlinburg just to meet them. And I believe they had been whitewater rafting that day. It's a tourist thing you can do up here. And I believe she had been rafting on the Pigeon River, and the Pigeon River up here where it's flooded now has quite a bit of rafting going on these days, certain times of the year.
Well, didn't you and I fish the Pigeon?
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, that last time when I went, I had that quail conference to go to, and I think we went to where I caught a long-nosed gar on a popper on my fly rod.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a beautiful little river that's much larger today.
Much, much, much larger today. I don't know, Diana, did you ever say, you said you guys were going to 17 Wing? Can you explain that? You probably have told us that before, but I'm not sure what that means. If you can still, her and Mike are driving, so I don't know. Dave, Dave's in Georgia. What did you guys get? Just some rain and wind, or if you're still in here, or did you guys get a lot? I was going to try to pull up pictures of that Nolechucky Dam. There we go. There's the upper left is what it looks like. what it looked like when it was built and what it used to look like back behind. You can see the lake back there. And this is what it looked like, I think, yesterday. And you can see it's water coming over the spillway dam on the left and then really coming over the top of on the right-hand corner. And that's the one that's probably making concern because I think
it's going to erode that away from that bank.
Yeah, it'll erode around that corner and eat away at the bank, and it could take out that end of the dam.
Which will be a bad deal.
Did you ever go down there and fish around that lake?
Which lake?
Well, what they used to call Davy Crockett Lake.
Oh, yeah, I fished off from that country clear up to home.
Well, you know that was silting in and to the point where they weren't actually generating. Like TVA acquired this dam in 1945 from the East Tennessee Electric Company or somebody after the war when TVA was kind of securing their watershed territories. And they probably sold them the company probably sold them this to get rid of it, to be honest. But that had silted in, and it had turned into amazing wetlands down in there.
Yeah,
and that's probably not helping this because there's no storage.
Not anymore.
Well, no, it may be flush now. You're right; it might turn back into a lake again. The people of Greenville that are not affected by flood, I might be happy about that because it'll give them a place to go fishing, and well, they can fish there anyway, but it wasn't as good.
So if you see that little point right there in the middle of the picture at the very top of the water,
right here,
up the river, yeah, right in there. I had permission from a farmer to hunt arrowheads on his place. And it was good.
Oh,
I think he was planting tobacco, and he'd let me go in there and hunt his fields. And golly, we found a lot of stuff there.
Pull this up. It's not great, but you can see this end up here where my cursor is closer to where the dam is. The dam may actually be a little further up, but this was the part of Hamlin County that they were evacuating last night.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So not the whole county, just chunks of the county.
Well, along the river basin or in that valley where the river runs down to where it hits Douglas. But then I was just reading, and I don't think I didn't find a map for it in time, but they're also evacuating Greene County and
Cook County,
Cook County.
Yeah,
that are also along the Nolechucky. So they've evacuated basically all along the river valley.
Well, I was watching that deal you sent me with the news feed, and they were that African American man was on site, and he couldn't even get remotely close to Irwin.
Oh, really?
Oh, he was.
Oh, well, no, yeah, you're right.
And I had no clue. I mean, heck, I haven't been there since the early 1980s. I haven't even been back to that country, but I was unaware that there was an I-26 that went up through the Irwin Valley now.
Yeah, they put that in after we moved away too. That, you know what we used to call.
There used to be a little 2-lane highway.
Yeah, well, that's a 4-lane now. And that 4-lane goes all the way to the top of the mountain. And the gap up there, Spivey Gap, and crosses over into North Carolina.
And that's where the damage zone is, that big time damage zone.
Yeah. So that's it's changed a lot. That interstate runs all the way from the top of the mountain on the North Carolina line. I don't know how much is 4-lane on the other side still. North Carolina hadn't caught up. But it goes all the way up through Erwin Johnson said he hooks around to Kingsport and hits the Virginia line up around Gate City. They just plowed and plundered and put a whole damn streak of concrete, pardon my French, all the way up through there. I've got something else here. If I can get it to pull up, let me see if I can show this also. Now I'm going to try to change screens, guys. This might be above my pay grade, but I'm going to give it a shot.
It ain't above your skill set, though, buddy.
We'll see. I'm hoping it's not.
Lance Cooley's run the Marine Corps. You gotta.
I had a couple, like I said, of videos pulled up to show some of this damage. And let me see if I can get some of that to open
and they're gonna ban you from the YouTube again.
Well, I hope not. They'll have to do it. It's all weather and it's domain. I don't know why. Let's get through this commercial. Skip the ad. Can you see that or hear that or anything?
I can see it. I don't hear anything.
Yeah, well,
it's not running right now.
Well, I stopped it.
Can't hear it.
Well, there's the Noah Chucky.
That is big.
This is in Cotton County. So I was hoping they'd show more pictures. So we'll see if I can get back to the video. So what she's talking about now is a shelter where they evacuated a bunch of the people. I have no idea where that is. There'd be nothing like moving out in the middle of the night and going to sleep on the floor in some gymnasium somewhere.
Did that a bunch when I was a kid when we lived in Tornado Alley.
Well,
my mom thought my sister was going to be born in that storm shelter in Millington. So, of course, I always just thought of it as an adventure. Look at that water.
Oh, man.
And then she was probably talking about how she thought she would get busted by a tornado at the trailer court. And there she is.
Look at the water running off that bluff down there. Can you see that?
Yeah. They keep showing that same view.
Right there. Look at all that water coming off that ridge.
Yeah.
This may be Cott County, but this might be over. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's hard to say right at that moment, though. I don't know if that's. I think that's part of the Chucky, but it could also be the Pigeon where it's up down there because I've never seen it like this. They said they rescued 50 people actually out of their homes last night. I think this is a current.
Well, that's about the number of people they had to pick up off the top of the hospital in Irwin.
Now look at that. That is Newport. I've been there many times. That's Newport. That used to be the main road.
And when you got your kayak strapped in the bed of your truck,
yeah, trouble's
you're
coming.
Just driving around. You know it's a lot of water. Wow.
And that is it's amazing. I never imagined that we would be in that position.
Well, that
Oh, here, wait a minute.
video
Here,
you sent me of the
hang on a minute. This is This is what's going on at the Noah Chucky Dam.
that's the dam right there.
Wow,
That sucker's gonna blow, man.
Jiminy Christmas! Look at the water coming over the end of that thing.
It's
Holy crap!
It's gonna cut a gorge around. It's already doing it. You can see
probably
it.
already has.
That dam on that one side there is gone.
So that arrowhead field you hunted somewhere up in here.
Right up in that country right there.
Wow. I hadn't seen. I've never seen it flood. I don't think I've ever seen the Chucky that high, and I have seen it pretty high a couple of times, but nothing like that. Okay.
We've had, yeah, I mean it flooded occasionally, but not bad.
I had music coming out of someplace.
But the arrowhead hunting is going to be good after this thing.
Will it ever?
They'll probably find all kind of cool stuff.
I had one more. Oh, I know what I had. Let me see if I can find it again. I did have one more thing I was going to show because we were talking about it.
Well, you sent me that link about the Irwin.
Yeah, that's what I was going to pull
and
up.
I can't believe how much water was there because I've fished that most of my life.
Younger life, anyway.
Younger life. That was spooky.
On TVA, here's a YouTube video from one of the local news stations that says that TVA is now saying that the Noah Chucky Dam failure is imminent.
Yeah.
So they've
already fessed up.
Yeah, it's
well, they did. I don't think they built it. They
No, it wasn't TVA. They
acquired it.
Yeah, and then by doing so had to take responsibility for it.
So what's going to happen? Golly, there's a lot of water coming to West Tennessee now.
Yeah, all the rain went down that way. I thought there's something here about Emeryville. The water, how much water is at Emeryville? I'm trying to figure out if I can tell what that was. I know at least two of the rivers. The Pigeon River was one of them. It had a max. The maximum it had ever flooded was around 20 feet at where they measure it, or 23, but it was going to be closer to 30 by today. And I think I don't know if it was the Noah Chucky in North Carolina, which is the toe over there. I'm not sure if it was also going to be that high or not. There was another river. This is at Emeryville. They're talking about depths at Emeryville. And they're talking about 20 feet, so they consider that a major flood.
Seriously?
Yeah.
And at Emeryville?
Yeah, if I'm reading this map right. And they're expecting it to be down back towards normal on the 2nd. So what day is that from today? One day next week, first of the week.
Well, today's the 28th, so we got 30 days or 31 days in September. I don't remember.
Yeah, I have to look at the calendar. We got 30. So by my Tuesday or Wednesday, it's going to be Tuesday or Wednesday before the Noah Chucky gets back down to normal.
It's back down into its banks.
Yeah. Now it'll get out of town before that, but it's going to be high. Tim, is that the dam you said was built in Yeah, it was built in the early 19. It was either built in the late aughts. I think it was built in the early mid-teens by I think it's the East Tennessee Electric Co-op or something like that. And then somebody else bought it pre-TVA's creation, and they ran it more or less until 45. And I'm sure TVA bought it because of Douglas Reservoir. Douglas Reservoir was built in the middle of the war, basically. And it was a war reservoir where they built it really super fast to help produce electricity for that part of the valley and for Maryville, because that's where the Alcoa of America was at that time, which and processing aluminum takes a buttload of electricity. So they were putting in all the generation they could then. So I'm sure that's why they acquired the Nolechucky Dam, because it was part of the watershed system there. And like the farm where you were hunting on the excuse me, on the farm where you were hunting arrowheads was probably TVA probably just had flood rights. We didn't own much of that in there. We just had lease agreements and things for flooding rights right away.
Yeah, this was all private property,
right?
And he was farming the heck out of it, and
had to go in there.
And it was right there on the river, and I'm like, well, I know what grows out of those fields.
There's a place in there I had to go to one time that was actually on TVA property. Part of it was, and part of it was backed up to a big private farm, and you couldn't get to it from the road unless you came down the private property. Right. So the only people that could get in there had to have permission. Well, somebody informed TWRA, which is the Wildlife and Fishery people in Tennessee, and they actually sent TVA a violation warning because someone had gone into that area and had dammed the creek that was coming into the Chucky and had created a moderate little haven of wetland birds and ducks. And they were going in there and hunting ducks off the private side. And they had created their own little duck pond there to draw in the ducks. And they were, I guess, had a heck of a place to shoot wood ducks and stuff. I mean, it was beautiful habitat, except for one thing. They were holding the water too long, and it was killing a lot of the trees. So they were going to lose a lot of that. It was just going to, of course, they might have thought that was a good thing. I don't know, but it was interesting. We had to knock all that out, or they did. And it was a neat place, though. Okay, let's see. I'll show you this chart just for the heck of it, since I got it.
Well, and that's where you become Andy Griffith, and you can't we just all get along?
You can see this chart and how high it is right now. This is normal for this time of year. And you can see how it's climbing.
There it is up there.
Yeah, all this pink area.
So did you find that video for Irwin?
Oh, no. Hang on a minute. That's what I was looking for.
You sent me that. It was a news thing.
Yeah, and I've got one even newer than that, I think. This is a newer version of it. Let's see what it has on it.
40 dead.
Not here. Where'd you see that?
Said Hurricane Helene leaves 40 dead in the southeast.
I don't know. I haven't heard of deaths in Tennessee yet. Doesn't mean it hadn't happened.
So these are the guys that were on the roof, part of them.
Okay, here's what this. They're talking about here, but they're getting ready to show the images of them rescuing. Here we go. That's the hospital.
That's the hospital, and that's the river.
Yeah, that water got a lot closer to the top than that before. They got everybody out of there.
Golly, that's the old Chucky River. Look at that.
It's closer there to the top.
And that's how they had to evacuate them, was helicopter.
See?
There it is. That's that curve coming into Irwin where you would split off and you could either go up the river or over to Irwin and Unicoi. That's nuts. I bet the highway's gone there now too.
What?
I bet the highway's gone.
Oh yeah, you know it is. It's just like that when you were talking about and you found a video of where it washed it out. Oh wow, the fire truck's even underwater.
Well, that's it. That's on I-40.
Right, at the North Carolina Tennessee line somewhere in there.
Yeah, like 6 miles east of or west of the North Carolina line.
So it'll be, and this has happened before in other places, but there'll be months, if not a year or two, fixing some of that because of where it's at up in the mountains. It's never easy. It's never that stuff over there like you're talking about in that area. Never easy to fix.
No. Well, they're going to have, like in that I-40 section, they're going to have to reconstruct that whole ridge.
Yeah, because it was that big curve out the whole area.
Or change the whole trajectory of the highway there or something, because it's gone.
Yeah, I don't know how they'll fix that.
But the river never looks like, the river doesn't, that is not.
That's not the Chucky you knew.
That's not the Chucky of old, certainly. That's not
the Chucky we fished in.
I've seen it muddy, but not very often.
Well, if you could see, there's that hospital, I think, is within eyesight of places we've probably waded and fly fished before.
Yeah, absolutely. It's right there at that junction.
But you sure wouldn't want to do it right now.
No, you wouldn't want to be in that river. And that river's scary to begin with. It can be. And some of those big old deep pools and things, it was a little spooky to fish in anyway.
Well, and this reminds me of a little bit that there's another man-created fact or problem with the Nowachucky. Oh, and I also heard last night that the hospital, they figure it's a total loss because it's.
Yeah, what are they going to do with that? It's gone.
Probably knock it down. And Irwin will be lucky. Union County will probably be, or not Union, Unicoi County will probably be lucky to have a hospital after this because they may not put one back in there. There's so many rural little. That's not the richest part of the state by any means, and they'll be lucky. They'll be sending people to Johnson City again. I'm sure. They were just saying they had intubated patients on top of the roof, so they had to pull people out of there that were
patients, not just
serious
personnel.
So anyway, it's been a rough couple of days, buddy.
And those three gentlemen are definitely our people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they are. I'm proud of that guy in the middle though, because he talks pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's man, oh man. What a man.
You guys are good, right?
Yeah, we're good. And we've got tree limbs, little things and leaves off trees blown in the yard, but we're not. We hadn't had any. We personally haven't had any other problems. We got trees down here and trees down along the road. The creeks are up, and I'm sure that the Holston is up, but I don't know. See, Virginia, where the Holston comes out of Virginia, I think they got blocked. I don't think they got as much rain, and that's the key to this area flooding is how much Western North Carolina can get, and up in Virginia because the Toe River, the Toe River comes out of Carolina, but the Clinch River, the Powell River, and the Holston River all come out of Virginia. And they run a long ways up into Virginia, so they gather a lot of water.
Right.
And I've seen Norris come up. Norris gets fed by the Powell and the Clinch, and I've seen it come up 15, 20 feet over its banks a couple of times quickly. But most of this down here is not quite as bad. The Chucky hadn't been up like this since I was in school.
Yeah.
And another interesting thing, and Mark said that the Chucky usually runs clear, and it does most of the time, but I can remember when it ran brown a lot because of North Carolina. They mined mica in the upper reaches of the Nola Chucky or the Toe in North Carolina and washed mostly sand out of those mines up there, and it all filtered down through the Chucky. So and that's why the dam was so silted up in that area, was largely because of the sand that came down out of the North Carolina side. So when I was growing up, there were places where the river was just great big sandy bottoms, and it might be deep one day, but tomorrow it might not be deep. And I don't know if I've told this before, but when I was in high school, there was a young lady that was skydiving down at Deckers Airport, which is right on the river. It touches the river, and she landed in the river. And even though she had been trained to get out of that situation, she forgot how. She panicked, and she forgot to release her parachute when she was in the water. So the parachute got full of water. As you said before, this river moves. I mean, even in good times, it's moving. And it washed her down the river. It filled the parachute just like it would full of air and pulled her down the river. Well, nobody could find her. That night, there was a huge thunderstorm. And anytime that river comes up and goes down, it changes
everything.
All that sand. It moves around. It creates sandbars. It washes away sandbars. And it just does all kinds of craziness. And it was 1 month, I believe, almost to the day. I think it was a month before she was ever recovered. And that was after a second big storm hit and it rolled her out. I mean, literally. Yeah. And in fact, some friends of mine found her. They were driving. We walked the riverbanks for weeks down there, weekend after weekend, trying to find any sign of her body and her parachute or anything. And some friends of mine were actually driving, and they looked down the river off a bridge, and I'm not sure which bridge it was, but of course it was downstream of Deckers. And they saw, I think, what they thought was a white parachute. And sure enough, it was her. And what had happened was, once she'd gotten tangled up in it, literally rolled her up in the chute and kind of preserved her in a sense. I hate to say and then she'd been they guessed that she'd been buried in sand that whole time. And so kind of an anaerobic situation, actually, and or aerobic or whatever, no air. And so when she rolled up, they found her. But it took over a month, but it was two storms that kind of played key factors in that. One that covered her and one that uncovered her. And that sand and everything is what's washed down. This storm is going to flush a lot of that out. I bet you. That sand will now end up down towards Douglas Lake and maybe dissipated down there. But that lake, that's what I was saying a while ago, that lake may be cleared out up there now. And I don't mean to sound funny because the dam may be gone, but that's going to change things.
Well, you remember how when we always fly fish there along the Looking Glass, and that kind of stretch of river below
this area.
below Irwin.
Yeah.
That whole straight stretch that went well straight, I'm using that. You know, it was heading basically the same direction to the west. And then you got down there closer to the Deckers, and the river made that big loop to the north.
Big horseshoe cut that went up and around.
Big horseshoe bend there. And that stretch of river to me was the most treacherous water I've ever personally been in.
Oh, really?
Well, it was constantly changing. It was always deep. And you just couldn't count on anything. I mean, like, but it was a good place to hunt arrowheads. Yeah, that was another good place to hunt arrowheads. I found
anywhere along that river.
I found a lot of stone axes in that field.
Anywhere along that river bottom through there, I suspect is still a good place. And I'd say you're right. I'd say in the weeks after this flood, there'll be a lot of things picked up.
There'll be stuff coming to the surface, man.
I'd love to go down there and walk some of that and
some of them big cornfields and things if they're not housing developments now.
Well, I don't think most of that's still farmland. I'm pretty sure.
No, good.
And if it wasn't, it may be now. It may be again. Not to sound macabre.
Well, I mean that's what they were doing up on the Ohio and places like that. They were starting to build houses out in those big old fields that were right along the river. And then bitching and complaining when their houses flooded. And it's like, that's done that for as long as that's been a river. That's why that's so flat and level out there.
That's why that land's like that.
And
they don't seem to get that. I mean,
hopefully they can't get insurance for flood insurance when they live in a, I mean, it's just like common sense.
Well, you'd think that, and I know people don't like this but you'd think they would even figure out a way to outlaw or ban building down there because.
Well, I mean, it's all farmland. It feeds our nation.
Right, and that's what it should be, and it should stay that way. But they need to put the house up on the. They need to put the houses up on the ridge, get it off the riverways to prevent that. And they have talked about that. I know in different times, a lot of people may or may not remember the floods in it was either 93 or 95 when the Mississippi got up so high.
Oh yeah,
broke all those levees and dikes in Illinois and Missouri and all down through there. And there was a lot of talk then about not allowing some of these towns to be rebuilt in their exact positions because of the heartache and the money. Literally the cost of it was a big deal.
Right.
So some of them had been built and rebuilt, and you spend $1 bazillion and then it gets washed out again. It's kind of silly, but they're there because you're right. They're there because of all that great farmland. And some people look at it like if this is the first big Nola-Chucky flood in 25 years, they may think it's worth it.
Ow!
Ouch! That sounded like it hurt.
Come here.
Somebody hit their head.
When you gonna get up now? Yeah, I was telling Penny to jump up on my lap, and she
hit the table.
She's under the table, and she just jumped her head right up into the table. Idiot.
Idiot.
You idiot.
Dog, I was trying to catch up here real quick on chat stuff. Tina was talking about, it's a military base. Oh, Diane, she said that's the military air base. So if they're going there, Alexander must be have something going on with the air cadets today. I haven't talked to Mike in a couple of weeks. I need to call him, see what he's up to. I was once told water is the most destructive force in nature. I'd say that's pretty close, Tina. I mean, when you think about a hurricane or a tornado that's spinning up at 100 and 200 miles an hour, but water, I mean, think about what water has done in a different sense. It created the Grand Canyon. water created the Grand Canyon. I mean, if you think about that and what it took to do that over time, if you do it a big flood like this and much more temporary situation than solid rock, well, rock and sediments, then, houses, they can't stand to water. They're not going to do it. So anyway, I'd say that's pretty close to being right. She got the date. She was saying that Tuesday 2nd is on Wednesday. So we were talking about when the river would be down.
No, when the river will be back in its banks. If it don't rain again.
If it don't rain again. Well, I'm hoping, if it don't. I'll tell you what, that front that dropped in here really multiplied this. It would have been probably bad enough as it was, because the hurricane path literally came up through Carolinas and hooked back into us, and then down into Middle Tennessee and went right over Nashville, or it was supposed to have. I mean, that don't happen. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's just weird. Usually they break up by the time they hit land.
That's true, Tina. And if you think about it, I guess if you're thinking about it, the water does do most of the damage in a hurricane. That was something they were really trying to tell people this past week that needed to get out of some of the coastal areas. It was because of the flood, the surge that was going to be coming. They were predicting that the water was going to be like 25 to 30 feet or 20 to 30. I don't remember exactly, above normal level on the beach, which means in a flat country like Florida, that's halfway. I could go halfway across the dang state. And that doesn't count what the wave action is doing. That's all. That's below what's happening on top. So, that much water is really destructive and dangerous. And some people just don't get that. Anyway, I'll talk about a couple on this dates real quick, because I thought a couple of these were notable. For example, on this date in 1836, Thomas Crapper, the English plumber, was born, and he invented bathroom fittings, and he contributed to sanitary engineering in Great Britain.
Was that seriously his name?
Yeah, that's his name. That's where the term crapper came from. Literally. Oh, and then to a more serious note, in 1856, Edward Herbert Thompson, who was a diplomat, which I don't care that about, but he's an archaeologist who did a lot of research on the Mayan civilization in that time period, in his lifetime. And then Ed Sullivan, Mr. Ed Sullivan.
Ed Sullivan. We got a really big shoe. We got a really big shoe.
Really big shoe. He was born on this date in New York. Doesn't say when he died. I just noticed that. I must have cut that off. Al Cap was born on this day in 1909. He's the guy that wrote Little Abner, the cartoon strip Little Abner. And I was thinking he wrote another one too. But Little Abner is probably the one he's most famous for. And I don't know if Little Abner's still being printed in some papers. It may be.
Well, they had a serial about it too.
Yeah, they did.
And I used to, when I was going to school in Arkansas, when I got down into the Ouachita Mountains where I was working, there was a radio station out of, I don't know if it was Texarkana or somewhere, Mena or somewhere in that southwestern part of Arkansas, that played those serials, Little Abner serials, over and over and over and over. It was wonderful. I mean, they were cool to listen to.
Yeah. I just realized Kay isn't in. Has anybody seen Kay online the last couple of days? She's in South Carolina. I don't know if they got where she's at, got it bad or not. I mean, South Carolina was bracing for it, but I haven't heard about them having near as much trouble as North Carolina and Tennessee and So I don't know. Maybe she'll get to catch this later.
Did Georgia get whacked too?
And yeah, somewhat. And I mean, they got a lot of rain and they got wind. They got more wind probably than we did, but they didn't get as much rain. So I think all in all, I talked to Dave. Was it Dave? I talked to somebody that lived down there in the last couple of days, and he mentioned that they weren't too bad. They didn't get it too bad. He was in here. And
Tina
Dave,
said
you are
Jay's power's out, but she's good. Tina
her
said
power's out, but
Jay's
she's
power was out, but she's good.
All right. I wondered about that. Well, our power went out briefly and came back on, and it hasn't flickered since. So that's one good thing. Also on this day in 1914, Maria Franziska von Trapp, the Austrian-born American singer, was born. She was born, and she's one of the children who's famous for the Hills Are Alive and the Sound of Music.
Sound of Music.
Yeah, she was part of that Von Trapp family, and she lived to be the oldest one, and she died at 99. She was the last. Says she was the last surviving sibling that was portrayed in the film. And I put this in here just for you, brother. 1926, Jerry Clower was born.
My man.
Liberty, Mississippi.
Yazoo City.
Yazoo, Mississippi.
Yazoo, Mississippi.
And then the Queen of the Blues, Coco Taylor, or Cora Walton probably was her real name. She was an American-born blues singer, born in Millington. I put this in for you too, because
Millington, Tennessee.
She was born in Millington, Tennessee. Yes, she was.
No way.
You were born, brother.
No way.
No way. She probably wasn't born at the Navy base, but it doesn't say, but probably.
Well, there wasn't a lot there but the Navy base in those days, or at least when I was born. So it wasn't attached to Memphis in those days. It was a ways to town,
So that it was a separate entity back then.
Yeah. I mean, now I'm sure it's been swallowed by the beast, but.
Tina said that Georgia got a lot of wind, or got wind. That could be a funny joke if I wanted to make it.
So where did it make landfall? Did it come up over Alabama?
No, not really. Probably got the corner of Alabama. It came up in what they now call the Big Bend of Florida.
So it crossed Florida.
Yeah, it crossed that upper part of Florida, and went into Georgia and part of South Carolina, and of course then got to North Carolina. But it made a big swath up through there and got part of Atlanta. But I think they thought it was going to curve right over Atlanta, but evidently it just kind of strafed Atlanta, because up here's where it ended up doing the most damage. If it'd gone to Atlanta, headed over Atlanta, I think it would have not been as bad for this end, I believe. Hey, Carol, was just talking about you. Well, a few minutes ago.
And so then it rolled off to the west and south. Over Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, it actually was showing one of the paths I saw that it was headed.
That's crazy.
And this was in the last couple of days after it really had done it. Was going to go hook back down right over Nashville and end up somewhere in kind of peter out in southern Tennessee, North Alabama, Mississippi area, somewhere around there. It's just, yes, it was strange.
Well, I know that Louisiana was braced for it.
Yeah, but I don't think they got much out of this.
And they didn't hardly get anything. I mean, they got some, but guys were still out shrimping and fishing, and
Oh yeah, that's right. You were talking about that.
Yeah, I mean they had one day of bad weather, and then they were right back out doing their thing, and they felt very fortunate, because originally they said it was going to whack them hard.
Yeah, this came up out of down around the Yucatan.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't from the east.
No, it didn't really come out of the eastern Atlantic. It came more out of the southern Caribbean.
Right.
Carol, if you can, I don't know if you're able to type or if you're in the car, but if you can, when you guys were up here and visited Pigeon Forge and Sevierville and Gatlinburg and all that a couple of years ago, did you go rafting on the Pigeon River? I was thinking you guys took a raft trip. And if you did, I'll tell you why in a minute. But anyway, that's so that's who all was born on this day. And like I said, my maps are still in here, so I don't know. Before I get off here, maybe I'll have a minute. I can check and see what news might be from everything. And the problem with this stuff is, we've got the rain now, and even if the rain goes away today, all this runoff is going to be collecting and gathering in these rivers, for a few more days, like till the middle of next week. And that's why the flood stuff is still a very real thing. They did raft. Did you raft in
Sevierville? So what runs through Sevierville?
Well, the Little Pigeon, I think. So they may have been on
the Little Pigeon.
Yeah, they might have been on the Little Pigeon. It runs into the Big Pigeon, or the Pigeon. So they could have been on the Pigeon. Well, anyway, that's part of where it flooded down here, Carol.
I don't think the Pigeon goes through Sevierville.
Yeah, maybe it does.
But the little Pigeon does. Anyway.
Yeah, it would. I mean, you're right about that part. But yeah, anyway.
I'm sure they both got way too much water in them.
I'm sure they do.
I know one of them does.
Sevierville, I think, had some flooding, but nowhere near as bad as the other areas around.
So is Dollywood underwater?
No, well, not that I've heard of.
I mean, it's on a hill anyway, but.
Yeah, but it's located. It is on top. It is, but it's also it's kind of located nestled into that.
In that little valley.
Yeah, so it could get some water damage through there. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's see. You just said something. Now I was going to look at it real quick.
Well, that like if you go down to Gatlinburg and the pigeons flowing through there, right? Through Gatlinburg.
Yeah, I think that's a Little Pigeon still.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I was wondering if
I'm looking for a map. I can't find where I'm at here.
Ripley's Believe It or Don't was still there.
Okay, Gatlinburg proper has well, come on, tell me what the name of it is. West prong it has the west prong of the Little Pigeon, and that's the one that kind of comes out of the Smokies, and then there's LeConte Creek that comes in there, and then
So they got a fair amount of water too.
Roaring Fork, yeah, they probably got a fair amount through town. I have not heard of any damage up there yet. West Prong. Yeah, the area down through there is the west prong of the Little Pigeon. We have lots of littles and bigs and mains, and you guys probably do too.
West Fork.
Well, I know you guys do because you live on one of the many forks of the Hams Fork, I think.
No, it's just got one fork. But then it hits the Blacks Fork, which goes to the Green River.
I don't know if you remember this or not, but the my study site for my master's thesis was down in West Tennessee, and it was near Jackson, Tennessee, and I was on one of the forks of the Fork Deer River, and there was like a East Fork, a West Fork, a Middle Fork, a North Fork. I mean, there was fork everywhere when it came to that river. They finally latched up into one big creek, but it was a strange thing. I'd like to never figured it all out. Well,
we do that too, and sometimes the forks are named after guys like the Clark's Fork and the Jefferson Fork and the whatever fork and.
Okay.
And then we, like every other creek, you got to name it either Sage Creek or Cottonwood Creek or Bear Creek or Horse Creek. And you start with that list and you just repeat.
Okay, I got to say this because we've been talking about it. The West Fork of the Pigeon and the Little Pigeon, the West Fork of the Little Pigeon and the Little Pigeon come together down right around where 441 and comes in at Sevierville. So I know where that's at. That's right there along the main drag in and out of Gatlinburg from the high interstate or into Sevierville from the interstate. And they run directly into the French Broad. Now, I think at one time I thought the main pigeon hit that and then it became the French Broad, but maybe it may not be that way anymore after Douglas was put in.
So Carol says that the site that the place they rafted is currently closed due to drought.
Oh, that's hilarious. They might have been before because we did have a dry spell.
It ain't no more.
I don't think that's the problem. Now they're due to too much water.
Well, that's what we've been dealing with. We had way too much water for a couple years.
Yeah.
And now the river is as low as I've ever seen it.
Really?
Oh, you can wade across it in a pair of Chucky Taylors and not get wet hardly. I mean, it's
back in the spring and early.
It's like this deep over some of the riffles now. It's just ridiculous.
But when the original snow melt hit, you were up. But I guess that's normal.
And then we had all that hail and all that rain, and it was big for a while.
But it's gone back down.
Crawled clear out of its banks, and not anymore.
Would you call it normal now or dry?
Dry, but it's because of him. It's because of a human that it's not got the flow it should have.
Ah, okay.
Because he ain't letting any water out of the reservoirs.
Water. Okay. All right, we were going to talk about spooky things today, and that was before the big spook come through called Helena or Helene.
Yeah, we had all kind of plans to talk about ghostesses and stuff.
Yeah, maybe we still will. I mean, hopefully we still will. I'll go through these kind of quick because I don't have a lot. I didn't poo a lot. But the first one I thought about, I love this picture because it looks pretty spooky. And that is Brushy Mountain Brushy Mountain Federal Penitentiary. And this is, I've seen this from the ground and I've seen it from above. I was up on one of these mountains one day that you can't really see well here. And we were looking straight down into this thing. We were up on the mountain actually doing some cerulean warbler surveys. And there was an old fire tower up at the top of one of these ridges. And we drove up there to look around for see if we got any hits up there. And two or three of us climbed way up the tower, not all the way. I'm sure we weren't supposed to, but of course we did. And because I was still young and, I was in my 30s, but I still didn't know better, apparently. And you could look right down in this thing. And, I mean, it was just, just looking at it, and I wasn't even thinking about it from a spooky or a haunted perspective. It just did not look like a place I wanted to spend my life.
Now, are you telling us about a slide or something?
Oh, that's right. You don't see it yet.
We can't see it.
Thank you. God almighty.
It'd be more descriptive with the slide.
Well, there's the slide.
Oh, that's just creepy.
Look at that creepy sky. And I don't know who did that.
That's not right.
Most of these photos actually came from one of the tour groups or somebody that's been in the tours. what has happened is this part of Brushy Mountain has been closed now. It's no longer the home of famous federal prisoners or like Martin Luther King's assassin, James Earl, not James Earl Jones. James Earl Ray.
Who just passed, by the way.
Who just passed, yeah.
Rest in peace.
Oh, and the last night or yesterday, the lady in Maggie Smith, who played in the
seriously, she's gone too.
Yeah, she died yesterday. She played a lot of one of the master witches or whatever at
Hogwarts.
Hogwarts, yes.
Really?
Yeah, she died yesterday. Anyway, this is Brushy Mountain Penitentiary in Little Petros, Tennessee. And I have a lot of kinfolk that live around this area. Probably had kinfolk that worked there for all I know. My daddy's side of the family, his mother is from this area, Petros, and the other little town beside it. I can't think of the name right now, but this
not
place,
in that building.
This place was, what was that?
I said she was from the little town next door, but not from that building.
Yeah, not from that building. It's funny, if you look at this place from above, the main prison part, this that we're seeing the front of, if you look at it for a minute, you can kind of see it here. It's shaped like a cross. It sort of looks like the nave of a church. You know, a lot of churches, at least cathedrals, are built that way. They've got side pieces. I guess that's the name. And then if you look at this from above, it looks like that. This was where Sparky lived, and that's no crap. That was the name of the electric.
That was the name of their electric chair.
It was in this prison, and they executed, capital prisoners, federal prisoners in this place, and it was kind of interesting. No, it was they built this prison in this a bowl of mountains in the mountains at Petros, and it was surrounded, and I mean literally on three sides at least, by steep mountains, ridges. And nobody ever got up the mountainside. They had a couple of people try to escape, and none of them ever made it up the mountain before they got caught by the dogs or somebody. And a few years ago, I think it was when I was still in school or back in school. There's an endurance race that happens up here in this general area through the mountains, and I can't remember exactly where it stops and starts, but it goes through this area. And they had some guy come sliding and creeping, flying down the mountain there as part of this endurance race. He'd gotten off the trail or gotten lost from where he was supposed to be, and he ended up coming into the prison area. And of course, he got nabbed because they thought he was an escapee. He had to jock his way out of that.
They turned the bloodhounds out on him.
It was kind of scary. I tell you one strange. I got to tell this, but I mean, in some ways, this is another reason it's scary. I worked here. I did a little bit of work, not here, but in the prison. They built another prison next door, which was kind of like the lower security area, I guess. And I think it was county or state. And this was built kind of on another big floodplain of a creek that came out of here. And part of that floodplain was wetlands that they were monitoring. And I went down on a little visiting mission with some other people that were working down there. Actually, I'd already started TVA then. And so we had wetlands that we were taking care of down in there. And but they had this area that was fenced in between fences. And I asked, I made the mistake of asking one of the guards why they didn't let some of that grow up. And because we were trying to put wetland plants in there, they weren't, about everything you said, no, can't have that, no, can't have that. Maybe we can have this grass or this clover or this thing that don't grow very tall. I said, what's the deal? You can't, he said, because we got to have it clear for firing lanes in case we do need to shoot. And I thought, oh my God, we're making sure nobody can hide here from the machine gun towers. It's just kind of weird. So that link should be live at the bottom. If you're ever interested in going to the haunted prison and you're in this part of the country, they do regular tours. And I may have put a slide in here for that. If I didn't, I've got it pulled up where I can look at it. They do tours through here, and you can spend the night in this place as if I was. It's pretty wild, and it's
clang.
Yeah. When the iron door slams shut.
Here's your room, and then they shut it and lock it behind you.
So this is Brushy Mountain, and it's supposed to be really scary, and I believe it's probably scary no matter what. I think it would have been damn scary to be locked up there personally. But they had quite a few people die there, and of course they executed a fair number. And so there's supposed to be all kinds of haunts in this thing. They've talked about it for years, and now they've got people that, go down there and investigate, such as these folks who are down somewhere inside. I mean, just look at the pleasant surroundings. Wouldn't that be nice to spend your middle years in?
Looking for haints and hoodoos.
And then I'm sure for this.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
I'm sure they did this on purpose just for these tours. But I mean, that if you're up here looking down this way, that's got to look like the pits of hell herself. And this is I thought this was kind of ominous. These steps lead down to the
Told Sparky.
Well, it's the hole. It's where they took people for solitary.
Oh, so solitary.
Yeah, it's down in the ground. And these are just some more of the, I don't know who stayed here. This might be inside that solitary unit, actually. Although, no, they could talk to each other. They wouldn't want that.
Way.
And these red lights and hallways, this is the kind of stuff they do now for the tourists. But evidently, quite a few people go in there to look around. I thought about this, and there's cell 28. You wouldn't be happy look what you get to sleep on in there, that comfortable iron bed. And I'm sure there's a lovely toilet right in there somewhere. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I pulled up yesterday one of the charts that told what they charged to go in there. And I thought it was pretty amazing how much it cost.
And that people were willing to pay it.
Oh, I think they paid a lot. Yeah. Here, I think I put another link. Maybe I did. Maybe it didn't get in there. Somebody has a website named Amy's Crypt, and she has a great picture of the prison with some kind of hellion monster that looks like it's coming rising up out of the sky with horns and big red eyes. It's a pretty neat picture, I must say. And actually, she's the young lady I borrowed this from. That's why I thought I put her link in here. This, I thought, let me see if she's the one that's got the pricing.
Morning, Rhonda.
And maybe I don't. Anyway, if you're interested and you're ever in this part of the country and want to do something really fun, I'm actually surprised my wife has
fishing on an old Chucky.
Do what?
He said do something really fun. I said go fishing on an old Chucky.
That's a good point. Apparently, there's a lot of writings on walls where cellmates, mark their days literally on these walls that they show you and, talk about how that guy wanted out really bad and all that kind of stuff. James Earl Ray was one of the guys that got out of the prison once. And I don't know if he's the guy they caught climbing the mountainside or if he's because I don't think he got very far.
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Ray. Did I say Jones again?
No, you did not.
Okay.
But you did earlier.
I know I did earlier. Okay, I found it. Paranormal tour frequently asked questions. Can I book an investigation more than 6 months in advance? Can I still book? You don't care about that part. Can we bring cameras, video cameras, digital recorders, etc.? Yes, they are allowed for your investigation. I love how they call it investigation.
Your investigation.
How should we dress?
What was that thing they had on the Ghostbusters that they sucked the ghost in?
Yeah.
You can bring that with you.
I don't remember what that's called. And then you got the thing that shoots the beam. I guess that's what they're talking about.
Don't cross the streams.
Don't cross the streams. Is there a minimum age requirement for paranormal investigations? Yeah, you got to be 18 years old or more. 16 and 17-year-olds can be allowed only when accompanied by their parents or legal guardian. Oh, me. You got to bring proof of. Will I have to fill out a waiver? Oh, yes, we have that. You have to fill out a waiver if you go in this thing. Oh, they're not taking each. So anyway, what does it cost? I know you're all curious. Well, where'd it go? I must zip past it. Okay. Yeah, here we go.
You were going to tell us.
It's called the End of the Line Paranormal Investigation.
End of the line.
End of the line. And you're supposed to be able to hear footsteps, apparitions, disembodied voices. So to book a tour, a standard personal tour, 6 people max, $480. If you want to go in overnight, you can take up to 12 people, and it'll cost you $1,500 for all 12. They do public overnight investigation.
And they got some kid from the holler there that's in there like, ooh.
You about made me spit coffee.
That was my goal, was to make you shoot coffee out your nose.
It's just about work. They do other tours where they just have, I don't know what this means. Public overnight investigation, $150 per person, 8 to 12 people. But I don't know how that's different than the other ones. But it's a short guided tour. Starts at 9, and you can hang around till 4 a.m. with or without a guide. Overnight investigations are available 7 days a week. Now the other thing that's happened at Brushy Mountain that I'll just briefly talk about is they have created this whole. Apparently, there's some nice restaurants in there now. And there's a distillery and I think a brewery.
In the prison?
Yeah, in the prison. I've never been up there. I haven't gone to check it out, but I've thought about it. But Phil may have gone through there once just to see. But you can now go in there and have dinner in a couple of restaurants, and like I said, and I didn't pull all that up, but you can see that kind of stuff. So let me put in this one link here. I don't think this may be the one I posted, but
probably in the old infirmary or somewhere.
Oh yeah, I don't remember now where they said everything was. Maybe actually one of them is in the main hall, like the chow hall. They've redone it, and I'm going to put
it now looks like a food area at an airport.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You can go to
how did you survive the storm? Did you do okay? So anyway, I'll keep moving as I go, but that's Brushy Mountain Prison, and like I said, if it ain't one of the scariest places you could ever go, I'm not sure what the hell would be, because that's like I said, it was scary in the daylight. I had to go up there once when I went up there to that wetland thing. We had to drive past part of the prison, and I was really concerned that somebody just locked the gates or somebody would escape or there'd be a prison riot and we'd get stuck in there and couldn't get out. Okay, this is the Alexander Inn. I don't have a lot on this. These will be pretty quick from here on out. what's unique about this place and supposedly why it's haunted is because, well, I thought I put notes in here and I didn't, apparently. Man, I got to get better about that. This is where most of the brain trust and men probably men mostly back then, who worked on the atomic bomb project here at Oak Ridge. This is in Oak Ridge and Tennessee, and this is where the A-bomb was built. A lot of you know this was also known as the secret city back then. It's a city that the government built and nobody knew about, supposedly. And all the atomic stuff got done here. What was it done? Hang on a minute. Okay. Well, my daughter's actually checking on us, looks like. Rhonda says they got really lucky, hit the clean side of the storm as it shifted. Lost a gazebo, have some yard cleanup, tree debris. Well, I'm glad that's all. Did you guys get much rain, Rhonda, or just mostly wind? Because I've heard that. I think Dave was here earlier. Somebody else said they got a lot of wind, but not much rain. So anyway, this is where Robert Oppenheimer and some of those folks stayed when they built the atomic bomb. So there are, of course, rumors that people who were affected by the atomic bomb now haunt this place. It fell into some disrepair in the 80s and early 90s, and somebody bought it and restored it, and they turned it into a pretty nice assisted living home now. It's pictures I saw were pretty nice. But back then it was all about the atomic bomb. This is a part of the Baker's Peters restaurant building and jazz club. It's in Knoxville. We actually used to live just down the street from this. And I knew a lot of people that went in this place and swore that they were affected. They had a ghost in here. I think they had two, supposedly, that were much like your Lillian that moved things around in the restaurant. And part of this, and there was a radio. Well, every Halloween seemed like somebody, either a TV crew, local TV crew, or a radio station, put people in there to spend the night so they could, see what kind of paranormal activity they could find. It's called Baker Peters Jazz Club and Restaurant, I believe is now what they call it. I swear I had Baker's Peter House in Knoxville. Yeah, I know what's going on. If I don't move my slides right. That was the Alexander Inn in Oak Ridge, this one. And now this one is Baker's Peter Club or restaurant. I don't know which one they call it now. I've heard it called club too, but because of the jazz, but I think that's just all part of the. I don't know the whole story on this group, but they're a little creepy looking. But this is over the ridge from where we live, a couple of ridges probably, over towards between here and Sneedville. And this was the old Pressman's home. And these folks gathered on Halloween to put on a big Halloween thing. And of course, now the folks that live over there, this was just recently bought by some private group that I think is probably going to knock it all down, put in a new resort or something. But this was I thought this was the strangest thing anyway, to be in East Tennessee.
Are we talking about the same place here?
No, we're not. Damn it. This place.
Well, that's a bunch of humans sitting in a pile.
This is a bunch of humans for Halloween, yes, but this place is supposed to be haunted, and they apparently still gather there for certain events. This picture was in the 20s or 20, I think, or 50s. I can't remember when they took this, but this has been a while.
So where was that big giant brick house?
This big giant brick house
that one right there.
That was just down the road from us a few blocks.
In Knoxville.
Yeah, probably. Oh, it could have been 2 miles. That road that was in front of main road is in front of our house was almost a straight line to this building. If you left the house, you went straight and then made one curve and then one second curve and you were there. Not a curve really, just a kink in the road. And so we live pretty close to this. And all right, now let me make sure I'm in the right spot. So this was the pressman's home. And it took me for a long time to figure out what the hell the pressman's home would be. And I found out that it was like a retirement community for people who were in the printing unions around the country. If you belong to the printers union or the pressman's union, then you could go up here and stay and visit. And if they had quite a bit of outdoor activities and things, it was kind of neat at one time, which is weird because this wasn't really what I would call pro-union country back then. Most people I grew up with were of the persuasion that unions were bad. I don't know. Never could figure it all out, but it was partly because of the coal miners. But anyway, that's
lower wages. Because they wanted lower wages.
Exactly. They didn't like people that got made a little bit extra money. But yeah. So anyway, these guys were there. I've got one now I meant to take out. This is another state house. This is a Taylor funeral home, but I can't remember where that was at. I took that in there and then forgot to go get the details. Now I'm getting personal. And from here on out, it's going to be personal for me, and then it'll be personal for Mark.
So that previous photo, that like if I ever end up in a place that looks like that when I'm dead, I will stick around.
Good point.
And people will suffer.
Good point. I agree. I don't disagree there. So this is, and then you.
Oh, this is Sensabaugh.
This is family.
This is family.
This is family. And I put 2 pictures in there because that lower one was part of when I think. Now here's the tricky part about this. There's 2 tunnels over here that are pretty close together, and I took Brenda to both of them just a couple of weeks ago. We drove through this one. The Sensabaugh. This is actually the Sensabaugh Tunnel. The one I grew up around and played in and cavorted about the creek and went down at night to scare people, was what I call Sensabaugh Tunnel growing up, but it was actually Ripley Creek or Ripley Branch, and it was right in front of my grandmother's house. This one's up the road a little ways, and it was on more Sensabaugh property, but Sensabaugh Road actually goes through here. And so it's named after the family. I asked my mother one day on the internet, and I don't remember where or what I was looking up, but someone actually asked me, "What do you know about Sensabaugh Tunnel? And have you ever been there?" And I said, "Wow, I've been there many times. What's the deal?" And they said, "Well, don't you know it's haunted?" And I said, "No, where'd you hear that?" And they said, "Well, it's famous." So I started looking it up, and no kidding, if you get on the internet and you search for Sensabaugh Tunnel, you will find pictures of this tunnel in the dark, in the daylight, from both ends. And there are just tons and tons of people who go here and take pictures and hang out at this tunnel listening for the spooks that hang out here. I asked my mother about this one time, and I had never heard this story. I grew up. That's
your family.
This is family, and we were over there a lot when I was a kid. Never heard these stories. Maybe my mom didn't want me to hear them. I don't know, but she said, "No, that's not true. Don't believe that." So the story is supposedly that one of my ancestors, named Edward, I think Edward Sensabaugh, owned this property. I think they said but somebody was responsible, that they took a baby down here and they killed the baby in the tunnel. The story was somebody robbed the family and they kidnapped the kid to get away. And when they got this far away, they just drowned the baby and kept going, which is a horrible story. But that's what they say. And then there's another one very similar, all dealing with babies, and similar stories, but not quite the same. And then there's one that actually says one of the Sensabaughs was responsible, which is what Mom was telling me. No, don't you believe any of that. She was a loyal family. She was a loyal Sensabaugh after all. But this is the tunnel. I put that lower picture in because they have numbers on them. We used to go through them, there used to be numbers right up here where my cursor is on the end of the tunnel that told when they were built. This one says 1902, probably the same time the other one was built. And the reason these were in here was there's a railroad up on top of this ridge. Train doesn't go through this tunnel. Cars and people went through these tunnels. That was how they got through.
In the creek.
In the creek.
Yeah.
And to let the creeks flow through. But this one has a road that goes through it, literally. The one at Grandma's has a walkway down one side. So they had knew that people were going to use it as, at least for pedestrian purposes.
Right.
But you couldn't, there was no road on it. I mean, there was a road at one end, but it dead ended there. I actually think I have a picture of it in a minute because people have pictures of both of them online and they call them all Sensabaugh Tunnel, but some of them aren't at the right tunnel. On the other end of Grandma's side, it just hits their what used to be their property. The creek just runs up through it. There's nothing. I mean, you can't drive up through there. But you could certainly walk through there. And like I said, there was a sidewalk or walkway down one side so you could go back and forth, come out over on the other road down by the river. And you didn't have to climb that ridge to get out. And that ridge was pretty steep.
Right.
And that's why it's got all this riprap. But see, I don't remember it looking like this. But I do remember there being a lot of rocks in the ground. But by the time I grew up and was the size of these yonkers standing on top of it, all the trees had come back and it looked like a forest, but it did have rocks and a lot of these rocks in the ground. So now I see why they riprapped it basically when they put the tunnel in. And I really wonder, I guess they built that whole swag through there to make it possible to run that train. Basically, they built a land trestle. I mean, that's the only thing I can figure. But I could be wrong. But here's some stories about it. This little story on the top here in this link is for one of the local newspapers or the TV channel. And they had to do a little thing called I'm a Goner. That's what this little ghost up here, this white ghost in the front, is supposed to be I'm a Goner. And they take it around to different places and do spooky stories for Halloween. Well, they say it was built in the 20s. That's wrong. It was built in 1905 or 2. And the land belonged to Edward Sensabaugh. And there's a little story there about it if you click that link. And I won't click it right now, but you guys get the picture. And this is just 2 more pictures of it. One, I think the picture on the lower left is actually from the opposite end than what we were looking before. Brenda, if she's on here, might remember, we just went up there a couple of weeks ago and we did drive through the tunnel. There wasn't much water in the tunnel. Was it rough as a cob? It potholed bad. They don't do much taking care of it anymore. But there is a road on both ends. It is intended to be used as a thoroughfare, but it's not very well tended. And of course, you can see everybody and their brother thinks it's fun and really cool if they paint on it and put their pictures on it. This is the tunnel I thought growing up was Sensabaugh Tunnel. This is Ripley Branch. So this is the tunnel I used to know. And I'm not sure when this photo was taken, so I'm actually not sure which end I'm looking at. Can't tell which way the creek's flowing. Actually, I think it's flowing in. So this is the tunnel. This is the end we would have gone in. Boy, that's changed. It used to be a lot neater looking than that. They also talk about that there's several tunnels up on the train, up on the tracks. So you got these tunnels at the bottom, and then you got these big semi-natural tunnels where they've either just blasted and left them rough rock, or they blasted and put some concrete around the entrances. But then there's a lot of just natural rock in the middle. And I've been through those tunnels a lot, and I thought, and there's a story that one of those tunnels, and there's a bunch of them on this line. Now, there's 3 within walking distance of this one, because I used to go walk through them all the time as a kid, and lay down in them and get caught by trains occasionally. And you'd have to wait the train out, which was kind of scary. And that was scary as hell, I'll tell you that. But supposedly there's a tunnel along here too that's supposed to be haunted because some people got killed there. Again, that's the story. So all that takes me to Wyoming, and I couldn't find my pictures. Mark, this is just a picture I got from somewhere. It was Wyoming. I don't think this is
Sundog.
Huh?
It's not my Sundog, but it's a
sun. Yeah, but I couldn't find yours. I would have put yours in there, but this is a Sundog, yeah. And
I won a contest with that photo.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Did it make you famous?
Made me famous. Infamous.
So I have a story here that was written to me by Mark's wife. And because if you guys recall, Mark talked last week about the haunt that lives with them.
Right.
And
Lillian.
Lillian. Yeah, and as Shauna pointed out, I'm going to go ahead and kick out the slides. That way I can see things better. But we'll talk about this now. And I'll read some of this story while I'm at it. I mean, while we're in here. But I'm not going to put it on the screen. But as Shauna pointed out, Lillian is probably more of a poltergeist because she, I think, moves things and makes noises. I don't know about that, but she moves things around. So, that tends to, I think that makes her a poltergeist. Some poltergeist.
She don't make no noises. She just, stuff happens.
Stuff happens.
Okay. That's weird.
So,
and I don't know if I believe or not, but weird stuff happens.
Well, that's what
Maybe it's just like John the hobo that got off the train and he's messing about in our buildings or something. But
that could be, and I believe that too. And I'm not sure what I believe either, although I've had a couple of experiences my own self that I can't explain. So perhaps there's something to it.
Yeah, me neither. I can't explain it.
But Shauna wrote me a history here, so I'll go over this history. And Mark probably knows this, but just bear with me, Mark. I'm going to read what she sent me.
Well, I don't know it like she knows it, but
okay.
You got to talk about her former husband.
Yeah, this all started when her late husband, Ron, they bought a house. I don't know where that house was exactly. Oh, it was over by Laramie.
And yeah, they bought a house just west of Laramie out in the plains. It was outside of town, about 4 miles outside of town. And
apparently she said it was cheap when they bought it. And
yeah, it was a little ranch house outside of town.
And they found out one reason it was cheap was the guy that owned it before had shot his wife in the bedroom.
Right, Lillian.
And her name was Lillian Ortega. And there were small children in the house when it happened, it said. So from the first day they moved in, very strange things happened. We had a big farmhouse kitchen with cupboards on 3 sides of the room. Most nights, we would go to bed and wake up the next morning and all the cupboard doors would be open.
Coons.
Could have been.
Here too.
Various varmints that come into ranch and farmhouses.
So at first they thought
Caitlin just said they're open here too.
That's right.
And ours are metal.
See, at first they thought this was just because the house was settling, or for whatever reason, but that they would open. But the cupboards on 3 walls, so it didn't make a lot of sense. She's right there. It didn't. I mean, it's not just settling all 3 walls every night. And then they also found out that they couldn't keep candles lit in the house for more than, a little while. They'd light them up and they'd go out. They'd light them up, they'd go out. And so she said they investigated the house for drafts, and I think she goes on to say that they fixed some places in like the roof and the walls, and kind of made sure there weren't any drafts and windows probably in the house. And on the second year they lived there is when they did that. And then the candles they still wouldn't stay lit.
And drafts in Wyoming are different than drafts most places.
Oh, that's probably true too.
When the wind's blowing 70 miles an hour. So,
and then there was a room in the basement, she said, that was finished, and they would use that for storage. And then she knew that there was, let me get this right, a certain box that she had placed down there, and then she couldn't find it. I would swear that I stored a certain box somewhere and would go down to look for it, and it wouldn't be there. It'd be on the other side of the room, or it'd be in the other corner. They started joking that Lillian was present and making sure they did not mess up her house. Nothing else was ever moved outside, just all inside of the small farmhouse. 2 of my 3 kids were born in the house, or I don't know. Does she mean that literally? Were they born there, or did they just grow up there?
They were born while they were living there, but
okay, that's what I meant.
They were born at the hospital.
Okay, so
we're not that.
So their rooms never did seem to be bothered by that, apparently. So she didn't bother kids. And then they first moved to Kimmer. They rented a house in town, and for 4 years, she said nothing really happened.
Right.
They kind of forgot about Lillian, and then they rented a house actually. And then they bought another house in Kimmerer, which I've obviously been spelling wrong. And
because I poked you in the eye over it.
Did. It was built in 74, so it wasn't a real old house. And the same sort of thing started happening there. Cupboards and doors open, and 3 or 4 times a week they'd wake up in the morning, there'd be something standing open that they know they closed, and things that washcloths on the floor, and the garage door was something else. She said they would go places and they'd swear they closed the door, but when they get back, the door it'd be open. I don't know if they left it open and it got closed. And this didn't have a garage door opener. Apparently this was a manual door, so that is kind of weird. And it's also
I pulled that garage door open many times, and
oh really?
it didn't have a door opener.
So let's see. This house had 4 bedrooms and an office space, and they'd find places in the wrong things. Barbies, the girls' Barbies would end up in Sammy's room. I could see why the girls might do that though on purpose, just to get at Sammy. Sammy's baseball cards would end up in the bathroom. He said they all laughed at Lily and followed us as making sure we were taking care of this house too. And she said she lived there for 24 years with 3 kids, and just things happened, and you just lived and kept growing. And so you never knew if the kids were involved. And the house we live in now is built in 1912. As we've talked about before, Mark and Shauna have a Sears and Roebuck house. Actually, it was built from a kit. You used to be able to buy all the parts from Sears and put them together. And they had the roof replaced the first summer they lived there. And some of the roofing crew told us that they heard the house was haunted. Did you have any trouble getting help over there?
Those boys were. Well, when we moved in, we had one of our friends that was helping us. He's like, "I'm not going up in that."
Really? I ain't going up in there.
You can't make me go up those stairs, which is more like a ladder well because it's
that's true. It's real steep.
House, but he's like you. But he's a fit guy, and he's like, you can't make me go up there. And then, and then, yeah, the roofing crew were like, we've heard that this place is haunted and weird stuff happens when we're out here. And I don't know how to feel about that. It's like whether Lillian came with my wife or if we had like old Mrs. Payne still out here raising silver foxes or whatever. I mean, I don't know how to feel about it. Because the people that bought the place from the railroad, the house was built for the switch operator this was the end of the line for the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
And the dude that ran the switches lived in this house for about 3 or 4 years. And then they sold it to a family named Payne. And they lived here for, till they were in their 80s. And the Bucks bought it, and then we bought it from the Bucks. But the Paynes had like sold it to the Bucks, and like they had a silver fox farm here for years and decades. And they got elderly, and they were going to move in with their kids up in Riverton, Wyoming, and they went up there, and the kids are like, "You're not moving in with us." So they literally came back here and moved into the bunk, and the Bucks were like, "Well, we'll just rig the bunkhouse up so you can live out there till you're, passed away." And that's what happened. So but I don't know any of that specific history about that family, but I suspect it's just Lillian.
So she goes on to say here in this note, I'll finish reading what she put down. So you guys moved in there in April of 2019, and things started happening almost as soon as that you moved in. The roofing crew you mentioned, she wasn't sure if it was Lillian or another ghost. She said there's a storeroom in the basement of this house too that you keep pictures and family albums in. And when you guys first moved in there, every time I went to the basement, this is in Shauna's voice, or think that she's saying this, but when I went to the basement, there was one particular box on the floor. I did not recognize the picture or the people in it, and I had no idea where it came from. I kept putting it on the shelf and to figure out later, and after about a week of finding this picture on the floor, and there is the picture. What are they doing there? Holding guns?
They've got shotguns and they're grouse hunting or something. They're in the mountains.
So that's the picture.
And there wasn't nothing down there when we moved in. So this photo showed up on the floor, outside of any box, kind of on its own.
Wow. So you don't know anything about that picture?
We don't know these people. At one point, we thought maybe that was Ron's mom, and but Ron's brother's like, "That's not Mom. That's not. We don't know these people."
Does the terrain behind them in that picture, the vegetation? Can you tell enough about it to know?
It's in a stand of lodgepole pines somewhere, but okay. I mean, that could be from New Mexico to.
Right, but out there somewhere.
Yeah. It's a Western scene.
So then it says that
she brought this upstairs to so we could try to figure out who it was.
After about a week of fighting around the floor every day.
And then she, a week later, she finds this picture.
So that's the one that showed up after she showed you the first one, right?
Yeah, which was like a photo that just showed up on the floor down there. And then we found this picture, or she found this picture. And it's the same people doing the same thing in the same location.
Huh.
On the floor in the very same spot.
It was what?
Well, because after finding the first picture in the very same spot for 7 or 8 days, that was on, and I brought the first picture upstairs, and that was on the floor in the very same spot.
It was laying in the exact same location as the first photo that she had found.
Oh, that's strange, I have to admit.
So,
and then there's something about a Christmas ornament that Caitlin made.
Yeah, so we had mailed Caitlin. She was living in Texas, and we'd mailed her all of her Christmas ornament stuff. You know, she was living out on her own, and it's like, here, you need your Christmas ornaments, and this thing just showed up like out of the blue
At your house.
at the house on the floor. And whether the mice are like in there, like, okay, lift. I don't know. But all these boxes are like tubs, lockable, you know, kind of tubs.
Yeah.
It's not like you can just, like a mouse could crawl in there and get in there and do its, you know, whatever. And Tina says I forgot one, but how did it get on the goddamn floor? And why? Of all the Christmas ornaments, why did that pull out?
And the thing is, I believe she says that, you know, because she would pick, before she brought you the picture, she picked it up and laid it up off the floor or something. But every time she'd go down there, it was back in the floor.
It was back on that spot on the floor.
Yeah. Same thing with the Christmas ornament, I believe. And now they have, you know, outbuildings and things, and the doors sometimes get opened and closed. And what don't make sense about that, and I've got pictures of this.
So we have a giant 2-story barn.
You go ahead and tell that while I pull. Let's see if I've got.
Well, I mean, we have a ginormous old red 2-story barn that's ancient, and it's got a big sliding door on the east facing side of the barn, and it takes a little bit to get that door to move, and it's got a latch on it that I tie with baling twine to keep it closed.
Mm-hmm.
I run it through the eye of the latch and just tie it. And there are days where that thing has been open, and then days where we had it open where it got closed. And I don't know if Lillian's strong enough to push that barn door or not, but.
And you could have, I mean, you and I talked about this the other day a little bit. I mean, you know that you could have.
And we could have a dude from like the railroad tracks, like, I need to go there and get me some sleep. And if that's the case, you know, the guy could come in here and I'd fix him an egg. But
exactly. Okay, I'm going to see if I can show you a couple pictures of Mark's, just of the barn door here, just so you see how he's got them secured, or how somebody had them secured, and you can get an idea. See, there's one tied up.
Yeah, that's the big barn door, the big sliding door.
There it is, a bigger picture of it. And that's a sliding door, right?
Yeah, it slides from the south to the north, and
there's one that's got a pin in it.
That's my shop door. That one's usually pretty good, but then around the corner from that building is a chicken house. a small chicken house where we keep our young chickens in, and and I've made pens that are this long, wooden pens to put in that latch with a head on the top of it so it can't slip through. And they're literally like 10 inches long, and and that door gets open somehow.
Do the pens disappear? Or are they laying on the ground there somewhere?
No, I've got them tied on a string and nailed to the side of the building, but it's like, what?
So they're just hanging there loose after you.
Yeah. And it may just be forgetfulness on my part or my daughter's part or my wife's part, but I doubt it. The kids are out here a fair amount, and they're real good about closing doors, and because they know that if the chicks get out, the dogs are going to kill them or something's going to kill them.
Well, most farm kids have done it at some time in their life, left the gate open. Most kids, they like that, know to close the doors, barn doors or whatever, or something's going to happen. I kind of grew up that way too, so you get used to something. And
Tina says Bell and Twine won't slow down a ghost.
Ain't afraid. Ghosts ain't afraid of no bale and twine.
And I don't know how to even feel about it. So when my wife and I were first together, and I took her home to see the parents, we're sitting. It's in the evening. We're sitting on my mom and dad's front porch, and there's a highway that splits the property down the middle. And
highway, I think it's US 39 or Ohio
139.
139, I mean.
Yeah. And so if you look across the road, that's where half the property's on that side of the road, and that's where Dad's horse pastures and barn and everything are at. And we're sitting there I don't know if we were on the porch swing or what we were on, and my wife's like, I see like a Confederate cavalryman, like right there at the barn.
Yeah, she asked you who it was, didn't you? She saw somebody.
As I recall, it might have been even like, is one of your dad's buddies like, doing a reenactment thing, and I'm like, well, I don't see him, and she's like, he's right there by the barn. And then it, kind of went on, and then I found out that a guy by the name of John Hunt Morgan.
Oh yeah, I know who John Hunt Morgan was.
Took 2,500 Confederate cavalrymen across that country, went right through there, to take he wanted to discombobulate the Union Army because Vicksburg was going on and Gettysburg was going on, and he wanted to they sent him north up into Indiana and Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, and ultimately right to Pennsylvania. And that's where he surrendered with the few men he had left. But they went right through that valley that Mom and Dad live at. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. So anyway.
Well, I'm not going to say I'm on one side or the other of this, not your discussion, but in general. But, I've always heard, and you hear stories that there are some people who are more sensitive to these things, for one way to put it, than others. In other words, they tend to either feel things or see things that maybe other people don't see. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, but maybe that explains it. Maybe it doesn't. I
don't begin to understand it, but
no, I don't either. And I don't say there's not, although I don't think it's like it gets depicted a lot of times in movies and and things like that. But I do have to wonder, and I've told this before, maybe in here, but if not, I was working at TVA, and I was still finishing up my master's degree, and I was working a lot at night or in the evenings and stuff. And some nights I'd get in, there wouldn't be anybody there. I'd be out in the field all day, and I'd work 9 or 10 hours in a day, and because maybe I had to be off on Friday or something to go to class, and just different things. But anyway, I'd be there after dark in the wintertime because it gets dark about 5 o'clock, and up in that holler it got dark even earlier. And I was in this older building that had been there probably since the 40s or so. Part of it had, part of it was newer. But what I didn't know then was that it's built right beside a cemetery, a pretty good size one with some pretty good sized gravestones, and it's in a patch of woods. And up till that time, I'd never actually been in it and didn't see it, and or at least I didn't recall being there. And so I'm there one night, and everybody leaves, and I'm sitting there, and it's quiet. And you did hear stuff in the ceiling, but that was mice and snakes usually. We had rat snakes that lived in the ceiling, and everybody knew it. And every once in a while, somebody'd come in there at night or something, and there'd be a black snake with a rat in its mouth or a mouse in its mouth, and something like that. But we knew that. So you'd hear those kind of sounds and not paying attention to them. And again, I've never been one to believe or profess that I believe, but I'm sitting there and I'm by myself and I'm working. There's a window in front of me. Like I said, it's pitch dark outside, and it's just quiet. And all of a sudden, I had this really strange feeling behind me, and it was like a cold thing. And all of a sudden, all the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I mean literally stood up like I've never felt it before. And then I was just sort of encompassed by this feeling, and I sat there for a minute. It passed, and I'm like, "What the hell was that?" And then the next thing I said was, "I'm getting the hell out of here." So I turned off. I put my computer off. I got on my motorcycle and I rode home.
You drove home
right then and there.
And I gotta say, I don't disbelieve or believe. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm okay if that's the way it is. I feel weird things at weird places sometimes, and I was at Fort Robinson, Nebraska.
Yeah, you've told me.
And I was on the spot where they killed Crazy Horse. And Crazy Horse always wore a brown stone behind his ear when he was in battle. And I found this little brown stone laying on the ground right at that location. And I picked it up, and it's in my pocket right this second. I picked that stone up. It was a little piece of hematite, kind of, but harder than hematite. And I was like, that's really weird. And right at that second, there was a kestrel flying right over top of my head, hovering and calling, he wore a kestrel on the back of he tied it to the back of his hair when he was in battle. And I'm like, and it creeped me out, dude.
Well, you got to admit it's a
And I was like, okay. I mean, it was just like, it creeped me out a little bit.
Let me throw something in here. If you don't know this, Mark, growing up, was a kid who really liked Crazy Horse. He read everything he could find on Crazy Horse. He had a T-shirt. What was that said? Custer
had it coming.
Custer had it coming, which was about Crazy Horse and the Little Bighorn and that stuff. I mean, Mark was he's somewhat of an authority on the writings about Crazy Horse, and so you knew these things that were important, like the stone. And most people don't know those stories unless they've read other books that have been written about him, much more detailed about his life, like you have, and like I have some. But I don't claim to know anything like you know. But to stand in that spot, have two things happen that were, I mean, you got to admit, that's just a little weird. I mean,
he got bayoneted in the back.
Yeah.
Right on that exact spot. And I was just like, it just weirded me out. I love that. I love that place. I love that part of the world, like Northwest Nebraska. It just feels holy. And
this place where Mark was at was Fort Robinson, right? The old
Fort Robinson was where they killed Crazy Horse. He was born in South Dakota, north of there. But anyway, and I think they took him up there to bury him or put him on a scaffold up in that part of the world somewhere. Nobody knows where, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it just that's the only time I've had one of these deals where I thought, well, that's a little off. I mean, not off, just it didn't creep me out. I was just like, what the heck's happening?
Yeah.
What do you mean that was the only time?
Is somebody telling you something, or is they just?
Oh, so another time, I guess it's twice it's happened. I got like jerked out of our bed.
Oh yeah.
And our bed's kind of tall. And I just got like jerked off the bed and down onto the floor. And I'm like, what in the? And I mean, I could feel like it wasn't like I just rolled over and fell out of bed. It was like I felt pulling. And to the point where I like put a pistol in my hand and I'm like, who the hell's in the house?
And there wasn't anybody in the house.
And there wasn't nobody in the house. So
strange things happen sometimes. You live
it's just I mean, I don't begin to, Tina was saying she believes in ghosts and spirits 100%. And I believe there's stuff we don't understand that is beyond us, which is okay.
Yeah, we don't have to know it all. Right in there somewhere is where you were standing. Near this, anyway.
Where was that?
Can you see that slide yet? Oh, this was the spot.
Oh, that's the spot where they killed Crazy Horse.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, I was right. I was right there when I found that brown stone, and then it heard right over my head, and I looked up, and like 10 feet above me was a male kestrel hovering, and that ain't him. He was never photographed. There was a Mormon that drew a picture of him one time.
I have that picture on there too somewhere.
That's the only probably accurate depiction of the man.
Well, see, here's what I think about that, or at least somewhat. Somebody else could have been standing there, and those things could have happened. But a lot of people probably would not have been aware of it because they wouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, me being me, I'm sure fed into the whole thing.
I don't know if this is the picture you meant, but this one was drawn by somebody, it said.
Yeah, that's the drawing. A Mormon.
It might be him.
A Mormon missionary or something drew that photograph. Not that photograph, that drawing drew that.
Yeah. Oops. Well, there's the article. This is an article in Wikipedia, so if you're interested.
But he was never photographed.
It says this guy made this drawing This Mormon missionary had interviewed him or talked to him.
Yeah.
Crazy Horse's sister, who claimed the depiction was accurate. So I don't know. It's probably accurate enough, but not exact. I mean, it's but who knows?
Yeah.
Because like Mark said, he was never actually photographed, and which is something that happened numerous times when it came to famous Native Americans like that. I mean, I'm not sure if anybody ever had. I don't know if they ever had a picture to come. Well, not a picture. Wouldn't have had a picture to come to, but I don't know if they had drawings of him or not.
They had paintings they did of him.
Yeah, I guess they did. And
Crazy Horse was his vision. When he did his vision quest, his vision said that he would be killed by his own people.
Yeah.
Or assisted by his own people. And one of the guys that they always put up as his photograph is a guy by the name of Little Big Man, the actual Little Big Man. And he's the guy that was holding his arms when they stuck the bayonet in his back.
Yeah, that was was it a Cheyenne scout that stabbed him, or an actual
white? No, it was a soldier.
But his own people had a hold of him. Basically.
Little Big Man had him, and they'd been like war buddies. They went to war together, but Little Big Man had become a blue coat, had become a scout for the Army. Was working, he might have been a sergeant at the time, and anyway, he had a hold of him, and I can't remember the guy's name that came up behind him from the back and stuck him with a bayonet. And he laid in there on the floor of the guardhouse for 5 or 6 hours and died.
Yeah. Basically, they executed him.
Well, they were afraid he was going to bring the wild ones back out off the reservation and start the war up all over again.
Just like the ghost dance did later.
Yeah.
They were afraid of.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they killed him at Wounded Knee.
So, and then I almost forgot, but Caitlin had sent me something, said she found a ringneck dove in the chicken house recently too, and wasn't sure how that got in there. So
we don't know how it got in there's no real way that it could have got in there. She found a collared dove out there. And then my wife picked up a stone point down at, we've got kind of for lack of a better term, a little beach on a bend in the river where the kids swim. I think you've seen the girls swimming with the mule.
Right.
And I mean, it's a deep old hole water. And my wife, one day we were down there sitting on that little rocky beach. It's a little gravelly kind of beach. And she picked up this arrowhead and she goes, "Have you been down here napping points?" And I'm like, "No. And if I could make a point like that, I darn sure wouldn't have left it." And it was just this perfect, gorgeous point. And last year,
and this was a place for you. I mean, you guys were here all the time. You go down there all the time.
Yeah, we go down there all the time. And last year, I was down there, or we were all down there, and walking on that same little gravel beach. And I'd bend down and pick up a bead made out of stone. It's got a perfect hole drilled through it. And then 10 minutes later, I broke my ankle.
That was a message.
I have apologized to that man many times.
I've seen a picture of that bead, I believe. And
I have gone down there and atoned for my, I'm sorry I stole your jewelry and my wife took your arrowhead. I'm sure there's a grave there somewhere. There's too much stuff right there, but And I took you out in the desert out here. There's graves all over this country.
Yeah.
Lots of stone graves, you know, because we're right here on the Oregon Trail. So
right. Exactly.
There's a lot of stuff. And then they found a man across the highway from the house here, just a couple miles from the house, that was, I think he was 11,000 years old, a burial.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a country that's kind of full of hoodoos and haints and whatnot, you know, spooks.
I wonder how much of that kind of stuff is under the trees back here that we've yet to find or see.
There's gazillions up, dude. There were so many humans living back there even before white people even knew that there was over here.
Yeah.
You know, you think all those we talked about, that all that Mississippian culture, and I know that my uncle talks about that, or he used to talk about before he passed, but he talked about an Adena mound that's just just east of Mom and Dad's house, about, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles. And a guy was digging that mound illegally. And I don't know, would have been probably the 50s.
Yeah.
Maybe the 60s.
That's when a lot of that happened.
And he got killed on a motorcycle, like leaving that site, you know. And they always attributed that to him, like messing with that mound, you know.
Violated somebody or something.
Yeah, I mean, it just was it was kind of a freak accident. It wasn't like they didn't have crotch rockets in those days, and so
right.
You know, it was just kind of a weird deal. But
do you know if, I mean, this would not have been unusual, but do you know if anybody was buried on your property? I mean,
I don't know. I suspect there's a grave down there by that beach. I mean, there's too many. The stuff that you find there is really good, you know, like stone.
You're talking there a native grave, or
yeah, that would have been a native grave. Yeah, probably that point was a kind of a 5,000-6,000 years ago kind of point, and I suspect that stone bead. Well, it was pre-white people getting over here, definitely, because they didn't make stone beads after they got trade beads, you know. But yeah, it's just I don't know of any white man graves on this property. I don't know where they were. I don't know where the Paynes ended up or what happened with them, or if they're buried in Canada.
Is there a church in Opal?
Yeah, we got a little Baptist church over here, but it's not got a cemetery. It was built. Really? My boss actually helped build it in the.
Oh, so it's not been there for 100 years.
No.
Because I would have thought there was probably
there was a mercantile / warehouse. Wares being women of the night. They had one of them right from the get-go.
Well, usually once the church
there never was a church here till.
Yeah, that probably explains it. Usually if there's a church moves in, those things tend to move out of town. Just what I've read and heard. Oh, I was going to ask. I had a thought right before that. Now I don't remember what I was going to say. Oh, so let's skip ahead for a minute. In the last week, I've turned Mark on to a new internet site.
Oh, thanks for that, buddy.
You're welcome.
I was watching that this morning, and I'm like, oh, heck, I'm going to be late for Tim. And I turned you on, but you weren't there. I mean, there was no link. So That's why I started calling you.
Tina said she didn't think anybody was haunting from the red light district. You never know. But I think they have found, they're mostly Paleo Chris. If you've never looked at it, if you're interested in archaeology or anything maybe we've ever talked about, I highly recommend checking them out. But he's mainly in Florida, not always, but mainly. And they actually look for a lot of dinosaur bones and or not just dinosaurs, mammals, just all kinds of prehistoric
shark
stuff.
Shark
teeth, great big giant shark teeth. And they find them up these creeks in Florida, which I've read about for a few years now, has been hotbeds for that kind of stuff. But I think they have found a few spots. Seems like I remember them finding some old stone arrowheads too.
They have. Yeah, they got one. I've just seen, I've been looking at through the video list, and they've got one that's just about the points they've found plus the points and fossils on the same day. But this morning I got sucked into one where him and his buddy were, they found
he has a website too,
a Tremarctos what kind of bear would it have been? It was kind of like a short-faced bear.
Yeah, that's cool.
Those Andean bears are Tremarctos, are the only ones left. But he found that, a sun bear or whatever they're called. Found a molar off of one of those, and then they found like a dire wolf jaw.
Oh, I seen that.
And that's a good one.
I haven't seen that
one. It's him and Wild Kyle, and they take their canoe way. I just could imagine us doing the exact same thing.
I wish we had.
And he had this cool. They were snorkeling, but he had this cool breather that floated on the surface.
Yeah, I've seen that, I think.
And it has like a, 15-foot hose on it, and they were diving and you could still breathe and bringing up these buckets of sediment, or buckets of gravel. And
wow, I need to look at that.
And then taking them back over and running them through the sifter, and they were finding all kind of cool stuff. Mako shark teeth. And
I tell you what, if you're interested in any of that kind of stuff, I'm not just suggesting somebody go, but Paleo Chris is a great. These are YouTube sites. I don't know if they have regular. I'm sure they have social media. His significant other, who goes by Bree, and sometimes Paleo Bree, because she also collects, and I think she does artwork with some of her things, a little bit like my daughter's artwork, where she uses bones.
She does a lot of skull stuff.
Yeah, and so she's got some interesting stuff. I don't know that she has her own YouTube page. I don't think.
Plus, they fish and hunt and forage and grow vegetables. And so and
I did not know until I started watching him that there were so many blueberries that grew in Florida.
Oh, and he's always eating them. And then
I thought that was a northern.
And some kind of wild yam
fruit.
They find all the time, and they dig these yams up that are like pumpkin size. And they pulled this one yam up that was, I think it was 25 pounds, and they figured it had like 15,000 calories of food in it, It's crazy. Anyway, yeah, thanks to your wife for that. So
she got me hooked on it too. So where I was getting at, and then this past week, just since I turned you on to that, I found two other sites that are just fascinating to me. One of them are this group of guys. I'm going to guess they're in Pennsylvania, Ohio. That seems to be the areas that I've seen them in, or maybe even mid-Atlantic. But they do a lot of metal detecting, and they're looking for artifacts of the of that persuasion, and they're out there hunting. They're on these battles. They're on these sites where either small skirmishes or battles happen,
Right.
or there were
Civil War
encampments of people. So they find some of the neatest hardware and coins I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then there's one more that which one's I going to talk about? Oh, this guy I just found a couple of days ago, and his site is called Beneath the Plains. I don't know if you've ever seen him or not, but he basically is an outhouse digger, and he travels around Minnesota, the whole Midwest. And he searches for these
bottles,
trash sites, or which a lot of times the toilets became trash sites. They filled them in that way, and they threw all their garbage down in the outhouse. And he's been digging in some of those that now they're 100 years old, so they're clean. Don't worry, folks, in case you get that idea. Well, I guess they are. And he finds some amazing stuff. He was just digging one somewhere in Minnesota. Again, he's doing this on private land with permission. That's important. So does Paleo Chris. He always makes sure people know that. He was digging on a site that it was a military base. I'm thinking it might have been Nebraska somewhere. I don't think I'd heard of it, but he said they were there. He gave the time period, and it wasn't, a big built up fort like we think of in the East, but you know how they did them out there. And he dug up one latrine site that I'm sure was built for many men. And it had 8-foot pits on it. And he was finding old spurs that had the randell broken off, or maybe they were whole. One was whole and one was broken. He found harness from, the cavalry horses or something.
Buttons and belt buckles.
Yeah. I mean, just all kinds of stuff basically in the toilet. And I know a lot of bottle hunters have always said, find an old outhouse. That's where the stuff's at. And, you can get a map. Usually in most towns, you can get maps that show, if you can get one that's back a few years, it shows where outhouses were originally located. Some of them do. And you can get those and go dig if you can get permission and all that. But they find a lot of bottles that way and a lot of glass, homewares, a lot of broken stuff. But it's amazing how much solid stuff, whole pieces they still find.
Right.
And if you're into that sort of thing at all, I guess you, like me or like Mark, you can get hooked on it and and go down that rabbit hole and spend hours and hours of time watching people dig stuff up. and you're like, wow, that is really cool. I'd like to do that. Why did I never think of that? Why didn't I go do that? And you're right. I can see me and you floating up a creek in Florida and digging up a sandbank to see what kind of, no telling what we could have had, buddy.
Yeah, I just can't, it's
amazing.
Fascinating to me. And they have found, Florida was a pretty diverse place for wildlife in those,
at some period of time.
50,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago. It was it was like sharks and crocs and lots of mammals. And then he's been finding bird claws and all kind of cool stuff.
And they find one other thing I think is
and
really cool.
They donate much of if they find anything of significance, they take it to the museum and donate it.
I have to wonder if he doesn't work with some college or something too. He just seems like he's been at least through that kind of a program in the past.
I think his buddy is the guy that has the knowledge.
Could be.
I think he's the guy that he seems to be the one that immediately knows exactly what they're looking at and then gives a scientific name and, when it lived and all this. And he's a pretty skilled dude, appears to be. And so is Paleo Chris. He's I think he's an avocational, paleontologist.
Yeah, that's what I think. I love how they show, they're finding this stuff. They go and look where it's washing out of banks, and you can see the layers that they have produced, that where this stuff is coming out as it washes out.
Right.
Of course, if you know that kind of stuff, you know about how old it is, and in some cases, but they find some cool stuff.
But they do a lot of diving, and
yeah,
I mean, and they're diving in little shallow rivers and creeks. They're not they're not going out the ocean doing big deep dives for stuff. They're just there in Florida amongst the alligators and the cottonmouths and diving, and man, they find some cool
yeah,
stuff.
and they're in creeks that they're wading in. Some of them aren't deep enough to get underwater.
Yeah, they're like not even, they're like a little bit over your knees.
Yeah, and some of them are not even that deep. Some of them they can't. Some they paddle up. Some they can't even get a canoe in.
What'd you say his buddy's name? Kyle.
Kyle, yeah.
Yeah, so Kyle, like the other day, I was watching one, and it was like he was like, "Hey, like, mind your six there, buddy." He talking to Chris, and there was a great big old, beautiful colored cottonmouth laying right there, like within 4 feet of him. He was looking around for a fossil, and he was like, "No, look right there."
I saw one the other day where he got a camera on one, and then it went up under the root ball there on the bank, and I thought, God Almighty! I mean, you can't. Once it got into that area, you could still see it because he focused on it, but you had never seen that if you weren't looking for it.
Right.
You just walked up on it. I mean, and some of those creeks are like that. And, well, you know how creeks can be with cottonmouths if you're in the right place at the right time. But down there, they also have to look for gators because they do find gators fairly regularly.
Yeah.
Not always, but gators are definitely something they have to watch out for. They were looking in some place the other day that was more like a flat piney woods that had some small streams in it and some ponds. And they were looking in this one little hole. And my first thought was, that looks like a gator wallow to me. Because they will wallow out holes just to have some water in to lay about in or eat, whatever they do in them. And sure enough, they found a small one in there.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's because I think Bree said something about, here's a little bit of pool of water. And I thought, that's a gator wallow. Sure as hell, I bet you that's a gator wallow. And down there, that's what I'd bet it was. But they find some of the coolest stuff. It's quite exciting.
Mr. Dave showed up.
Hey, Dave. How's post tornado or hurricane Florida? Did you get any of that, or there's places in Florida that really didn't see any of this hurricane, I don't think.
So you said it come across the panhandle? Came
up, yeah, more or less right where the panhandle and the I don't know what they call that part, the boot comes down. They've come, weather people at least, and maybe other people. I never called it this. They're calling that the Big Bend.
War zone.
Oh, so you got hammered, huh? Or your area did? How about you personally? I'll give him a chance to tell us before. I don't want to cut him off. Yeah, they're calling it the Bend or the Big Bend now, Florida. That's where it's saying went in. I think it said there's
lots of damage, tons of flooding. Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, I knew some places did. Some places didn't.
Well, who'd have thunk that East Tennessee would be like one of the worst places that suffered?
Yeah, who would have thunk it? Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee in the mountains. We're not supposed to have that kind of stuff. Hurricanes aren't supposed to be.
That's here. Not hurricane country.
No, it's not. Or it didn't used to be.
Almost never was even tornado country. I mean, I remember one that came down off Unaka Mountain and went down through Dick's Creek there along the highway. Remember that when that
I do.
cyclone hit down through there and tore all that timber down? But
they were rare back then.
That was a super rare event.
Well, people didn't think about that back then. If it happened, it was a very unusual. Now it's almost like every year we expect it and brace for them because there's always some dancing around here somewhere. Seems like.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, Dave, for you personally, did you have property damage or personal damage?
Looks like he's good.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm fine. Okay,
that's perfect.
Good deal, Dave. I'm glad to hear that. So far, most of the people that I know, at least, have weathered. There's a couple of people that I used to talk to and used to come in my show that have just kind of disappeared. But after either last year's hurricane season or early last year, but I can't. Mike and oh crap, because he and I used to talk about drinking brown liquor, and they got blown out. I can't remember which hurricane it was, and I talked to them a couple of times after that, but I've not seen them since. So I don't know if they moved out of Florida and quit or if they just never got rebuilt. Dave says, no, I'm still trying.
From the last hurricane.
Oh, okay. I tell you what, it can be rough, that's for sure. Season should about be over, but it seems to be busy this late in the season too. I've been seeing several things down and off the coast. And Mark, if you guys don't know this guy, Mark turned me on to this guy too a couple of years ago, probably. His website is
Ryan Hall, y'all.
Ryan Hall, y'all. And he has a y'all crew, which is his like supporters or fan club. And I don't know what his background is, but he's a trained meteorologist, and he has connections with all the major weather connections like NOAA and stuff like that. He's got great computer systems where he can show everything that's happening. And he had crews out for this. I have to say he covers the hurricane and the damage and where it's going and where it's coming to probably as well as anybody I saw anywhere. And
he's good.
I watched him follow this one up several nights, and him and his cohorts who were out in the field along the path of the hurricane kept up very well. And I'll have to say, I believe he was as close as anybody out there as far as getting it where it went, hit and where it landed. And,
yeah, he's a good predictor, and I think he lives up in Lexington in Kentucky.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. He was in Kentucky or somewhere like that.
Yeah, he's definitely in Kentucky, and I think he's out of Lexington. And they do. I mean, he and his crew do like post-storm helping people out kind of trips where they go and buy food and water, and
he has an ongoing.
I wish he would focus every now and again. His focus is mainly the eastern U.S., but it'd be cool to have him do more western stuff too.
I've seen him do some stuff out west. Carol says, "Yeah, Ryan Hall does a good job." She thinks Rhonda told her about him.
Yeah, he's handy.
He does well. I recommend him. I watched him a couple of nights for this one as it was coming up, hit the coast and come up. They had some of his guys had cameras like tied to the front of a house and to the back of a house, and were kind of showing before and after shots in a way as it moved past, as the waves of or I don't know, whatever you call it, the layers of the hurricane moved through. It was pretty fascinating. You could see how things went in different directions and that kind of stuff. There's a lot goes on in a hurricane. Anyway,
I'm still surprised it got that far inland.
Oh, me too. I'm surprised it did as much damage. it'll be a while. I mean, it's still doing damage. I haven't looked up since we started, see if there's any new reports. Let me look here just one more
That
time.
old home stomping grounds has got they're suffering.
Let's see, here's another one of the local news stations. Evacuations. That was late last night.
Did they evacuate Unicoi or Washington County or any of that country?
I haven't heard anything about Washington County yet. I don't know. You'd think that there might be some down there in a couple places, especially now that once it started backing up from the dam. I mean, even though it's running over it and probably washing it out. The Highway 107 bridge, which is that bridge that was one of the pictures I showed earlier. I just saw it in the background. There was a bridge that crosses the river just below the dam.
And it's gone.
Well, they had closed it because they were monitoring it. I don't know if it's gone, but they were monitoring it. Oh, there are other bridges they've closed: Bird's Bridge, Chucky Pike, and Buckingham bridges, which I'm not sure anymore exactly where those are at. I used to know. Greene County.
So if you went up to Deckers and went towards Irwin, what was that highway?
Well, the highway where Deckers was on is 107, or what we know as 107.
Yeah, but it went.
81 is the highway that goes from Jonesboro to Irwin.
81.
81. That's
So I think it blew a bridge out on that highway.
I may have. I don't doubt that.
Like completely removed it, like it's just gone.
Well, Emerald Dam is where those readings I was showing were coming from. So that could have been one. That one may be damaged or gone.
Yeah.
Roan Mountain was evacuated Friday morning.
Roan Mountain?
Huh?
Roan Mountain?
Yeah, because the creek or the river that flows through Roan Mountain off the mountains was flooding the town.
Wow.
The Red Cross opened a shelter up there. Elizabeth, of course, is in Carter County, so they had stuff evacuated. They set up shelters. Here's something about Washington County. Let me see what it says. Emerald had been evacuated. They were ordering Emerald to be evacuated. So that's where the readings for the river was high a while ago, was in the Emerald area.
Right.
And there's a bridge there. So maybe that is the bridge that got damaged or washed out.
Wow.
Rescue efforts. Okay. They're trying to get people to leave. They don't want them hanging around rescue. That makes rescue efforts harder, and I get that. I didn't used to really think about that, but if you got too many people to rescue, it's hard to get them all.
Yeah, buddy.
South Central Elementary School was set up as a shelter. I played baseball there. Well, if it's at the same place it was when I was growing up. There's something about a boat that was ripped loose and knocking things down, I'm sure. Yeah, there's a picture, Mark. If you go online, we've done about Roan Mountain here. That'd be JHL, which is I think it's channel in Johnson City. They've got some pictures of Roan Mountain. Man, that looks rough. It might be I don't know if that's part of the Doe River. Let me see if it says. Oh, they were talking about that boat getting slammed into the bridge. And they're not really telling what river that is in Carter County that blew through. That may be the Doe that came through Roan Mountain. Brenda has a friend that lives in that area, and she said they were hit pretty hard. My daughter had sent me a note a few minutes ago. I think I mentioned she was wanting to know if we were okay with the dam failure. So we're okay there. So I'll let her know we're okay. Let's see, Phil's been talking to me about it too, and I didn't know. Oh yeah, we've got a good friend. Phil has a buddy that he used to work with, and I have been to some races with him. And his name's Dennis. And Dennis is now living in Asheville, which got hammered. And he said Asheville is like end times: no power, no cell service, no water or food, and almost every road is blocked or underwater at some point. People are getting desperate. We barely got out. He and his wife and kids tried 3 ways across the mountain and finally got across on the Skyway, which is the Cherahela. That's a big deal. And they're staying at Wallen on the Tennessee side right now. They're at some friends' cabin. We aren't going back until there's power. It's a damn mess over there. I went out in the truck Friday about lunch, and as soon as I saw how bad it was, I had the family pack up, and we got out. Lucky we did. Dams busted and more roads closed after they left. So Asheville has had a rough time, because I've only seen in person one worse situation, and it's when I did tsunami relief in Thailand. I didn't know he'd been to Thailand. It's pretty damn bad, man. The flooding was unbelievable. I'm just reading this, so pardon the language. The flooding was unbelievable, and all the houses and motorhome campgrounds by reviews and rivers and streams were completely wiped out. It's a mess. It'll be years before that place looks normal. Wow. Man, I knew it was bad. It's so, like Mark has been saying, it's so unusual for Asheville, North Carolina to get hit by hurricane problems. And like I said, though, it's a combination of that front that moved down and the hurricane that moved up. And that's kind of where they coalesced. Hi, Michelle. I didn't see you come in. Well, where we used to live is fine. It was in town. I've not heard anything down there. Again, the rivers that flow into the reservoirs that were around us, and we lived within, I guess, half a mile or a quarter of a mile of on the Tennessee River, and most of that was good the last time I looked. Now, all this water is headed that way, so those reservoirs and river areas will be up, and probably are now. I looked at Chattanooga. Usually you can tell how bad it is by looking at Chattanooga. If the water is so high that Chattanooga is flooding, it's pretty bad up here, because Chattanooga was a city that used to flood literally every year, or practically every year, until TVA came along. Chattanooga's flooding was one of the reasons TVA was built. And after that, there's been very few floods down there, and when they are, they're not as catastrophic as they once were. I didn't say they were good, but they're not as catastrophic. So if Chattanooga's flooding, then that means a lot. But luckily, in one sense, most of this is coming down the rivers that are east of us, but end up down this way. That's what's going on with the North Carolina rivers that are coming into Tennessee, and the areas in Tennessee right now that are the worst hit are the ones that are affected by that. Parts of Virginia, where the rivers get most of their water, that are more towards my area, my part of the watershed, are coming off different areas and didn't seem to get as much. So far, I've not seen anything really bad about them. Like I said, the reservoir Douglas, which is where the Nolichucky and the French Broad are running into, both out of North Carolina, they're expecting it to go up as much as 16 feet. That's a hell of an increase in a short period of time. Luckily, they had some room for it. TVA operates we have reservoirs, not really lakes, true definition. And in the wintertime, they draw those reservoirs down so that there is water, a room to put snow melt and rain in the winter and then spring runoffs, when normally these areas get a lot of rain. This is coming at an odd time because it's, winter drawdown had started, fortunately, but I'm sure it wasn't complete. But it has given them some room to store water for the, that's coming out of these rivers. And it's just, Michelle, if you look all through this area and look for things like Asheville, Tennessee, or not Asheville, Tennessee, Asheville, North Carolina, Irwin, Tennessee, Johnson City, Tennessee, and look at some of the reports that are coming out of there, it is unbelievable. And it's all from this hurricane. Well, the hurricane and that weather front. Those two coming together is what really made this even worse for us. Fortunately, Brenda and I live in a spot where we're not on that major, drainage. If you look at a map of this, I've talked about this before. This area through here is a true ridge and valley geographic formation. So you got one valley, ridges, a valley, a ridge, a valley. I mean, literally, it's like somebody raked it. If you look at a topographic map, and you can see how that works. And when certain rivers or creeks are full, that valley is what gets flooded. We're over a couple of valleys, and so we're not getting the worst of it. We have a creek that runs through here, but it's high, but it's not going to bother us. It's not going to affect us in any way. It could get over the road in a couple of spots down here, but I don't think it will now. It had last night. We did drive into town last night to pick up some medicine and to get out and see what was going on. We did have a shelter in place order yesterday morning, and I'm not sure they lifted it, but it got, as things got better, it wasn't a big problem. I was reading about Chimney Rock being wiped out. I didn't know that. Now, I've not seen that part. But that's over in the Asheville area, so I wouldn't be surprised. I believe I heard this morning, I said this earlier, but I swear I think I heard that Asheville may have gotten up to 25 inches of rain out of this. And that is just an unbelievable amount of rain for mountain country. They just don't happen.
That's crazy.
And that's in like a 24-hour period.
That's like 3 times my annual precept.
Yeah,
seriously.
Like that.
Wow.
I mean, that's
in one storm.
Or a combination of 2 storms.
Well, yeah. From
what I understand from our weather people, the hurricane didn't come up the coast because the weather system coming out of the west is that's it. That's what happened, Tina. I mean, those 2 storms,
they sucked together.
And that's what really pounded us. The hurricane probably brought a lot more moisture from what moisture was already here. I mean, we'd been getting rain for a few days before the hurricane ever hit. And Brenda and I were talking a couple of days ago, and I said, this can't be the hurricane yet. It's too early. But it bothered me at the time because I thought, man, if this is bad and the hurricane gets here, it's going to get worse. And it did. I'm not a predictor of weather. It was just obvious that it was going to be, we were going to have a lot of water on the ground or in the ground or running off the ground. And, if you look up some of that stuff, I'll look up Chimney Rock and see what they've got to say about over in there. I don't doubt that, though. There's another area over there that I saw. Might have been Elk Park or Banner Elk was flooding. Not as bad, not major rivers, but big creeks and streams. So any of that stuff up if it is. And the other thing you got to remember about this country is towns and areas where there's a lot of people living are usually in between the mountainsides, the valleys. So the water comes down and runs down the valley. So places like that get washed out when this kind of event happens. And so it's it's bad. But this is one of the worst I remember. Maybe the worst I remember, and it's affecting like the older dams. The one on the Pigeon that they were worried about is an older dam that it is in Duke's Power's part of the world. It wasn't TVA, but it ran into Tennessee when it became affected. And then the Chucky Dam is an old dam and an old system, but it had spill gates, and I'm sure it had a spillway off the low end if it got too high. But this is so high that I think it's probably washed that whole end out. I'll have to look it up some more when we're through, but it's and if anything happens, I'll post up on my face page or somewhere, or on Instagram if I can. Tina says, same here. We live in the foothills of the Adirondacks. Yeah, the Mohawk Valley. There you go, Tina. I mean, it works. It's the same kind of deal. And, every once in a while, you guys get those kind of rain. I mean, hurricanes do get up your way. And it's just wild at this one. And we get rain off hurricanes a lot. That's not that unusual. I think what's really unusual about this one is where it hit, the timing, the second storm, and then the fact that this one didn't go off the East Coast. It came west. Once it got up here, it kind of hung around and then hooked west. It's a different series of events that, you don't necessarily think about, but when they happen, boy, oh boy, is it a big deal. And I'll have to look. I mean, since Jennifer called me or sent me a note, I'll have to see if there's a new report about Chucky Dam. Let me look real quick. Something may have come out since we've been on here talking. No, that's not what I wanted. TVA Chucky. Oh, Nola Chucky. We call it Chucky. It's not. It's Nola Chucky.
Brother, I'm gonna leave.
Okay, well, I'm getting ready to too because I can't talk hardly anymore. So,
Okay.
Thanks for hanging around. Thanks for the stories. I don't know what we'll talk about next week, but we'll find out.
We'll come up with something.
Talk to you in a day or two.
Squirrels or something.
Okay. I'll talk to you in a day or two, hopefully.
See everybody later.
Take care, brother. All right, guys. Well, I've kept you a long time, way over time, I guess. It's been a little different because of the storm and the weather, so I had a little bit more to talk about, I guess. But scary times in parts of this state, so think about us. Who knows? Maybe the power of prayer, or who knows what might get sent through the waves, airwaves, or through space to get down this way. But if there's any good news to it, it's probably that the storm is ending, clearing out. I think they're predicted. I haven't looked at the weather this morning. They were predicting that, in the next couple of days it was going to dry up, but it was going to be a couple of days yet. And we were talking about that chart. So, you can kind of see, I was going to try to pull up weather real quick on my phone. It's going to be a couple of days before all these rivers can settle back down. And unfortunately, there's going to be damage and problems caused until they do. It's going to be rough. My weather says it's still going to be a little bit of rain tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday. Light showers possible. And then Thursday and later next week, it's going to finally start drying up and clearing up. So we could be raining. We could be rough for the next few days. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's going to be enough rain to cause more flooding, but it won't help. I mean, it'll keep things going. So I'll keep you posted. That's okay, Michelle. Yeah, well, I get that. You guys on the West Coast, you're an hour or two. You're on lazy time. I'm kidding. I'm not going to mean that maliciously. But anyway, guys, I'm going to let you go. Go watch some football if you've got football. There's a lot of things that have been canceled that in my part of the country. I don't know if anything major is going to be canceled. I haven't looked to see if Tennessee's playing anybody today and where. Knoxville's probably okay. I wouldn't see them closing or canceling those kind of games, but high school football, high school period got canceled in most counties around here. So anyway, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Think about us. I'll send stuff out. If I hear something new, I'll let you guys know. And, look it up. There's a lot of information out there right now about Tennessee and East Tennessee and Western North Carolina that usually doesn't get so much attention. Sorry, I hate it for a bad reason. But those of you who have been here and have looked through how beautiful this country can be, some of those spots aren't looking so pretty at the moment. So we'll see. Everybody have a good day. I'll see you again next week, and hopefully we'll all be here together, and we'll talk about the aftermath of this a little bit. See you then.